Chapter 1810. How Tianwang had died and turned into a withered corpse. A strong wind blew, and the corpse cracked inch by inch, turning into powder that drifted away with the wind and disappeared between heaven and earth. The blood veins returned to Xiao Bai's body one after another. Whoosh! Suddenly, a burst of bloody light shot into the sky. Xiao Bai cried out loudly as streaks of bloody light appeared on his face. Half the sky was dyed red, and the Kunpeng was also dyed red. Xiao Bai, what happened to you? Everyone turned pale with fright as they stared at Xiao Bai and asked. Xiao Bai couldn't hear anything and couldn't answer a single word. Tang Zheng was shocked, but when he looked closely, he discovered that Xiao Bai's cultivation was increasing rapidly like a rocket. He immediately stopped the others from coming closer and said, "Don't worry, this seems to be a good thing for Xiao Bai." Good thing? Everyone was puzzled. The bloodthirsty scepter has absorbed Hao Tianwang's blood, and the bloodthirsty scepter has already become one with Xiao Bai. This is equivalent to him absorbing Hao Tianwang's blood. This blood contains Hao Tianwang's powerful cultivation, and this cultivation is constantly transforming into Xiao Bai's own cultivation. Tang Zheng spoke tirelessly, and everyone came to a realization. They all looked at Xiao Bai with envy. However, when they thought of Xiao Bai's experience and the fate of the imperial family, they didn't feel envious anymore. The heavens were clear. Perhaps this was Hao Tianwang's fate after committing so many evil deeds. He definitely didn't expect that the cultivation he had cultivated for countless years would end up benefiting Xiao Bai and become Xiao Bai's. Time passed minute by minute, and the bloody light on Xiao Bai's body gradually dissipated. At this moment, not only Tang Zheng, but everyone could feel the tremendous change in Xiao Bai. The Grand Ancestor was the most excited. His eyes glowed as he burst into tears. His legs gave way as he knelt down in midair. He wailed, "The late Emperor's spirit in heaven has seen what your Majesty has done and changed. You can rest in peace now. The vengeance of the imperial family has been avenged. The traitor has been killed by His Majesty. The imperial family will rise again. The realm beyond Avalon will rise as well." The old ancestor talked non-stop. When the others heard this, all of them were moved, and they felt sorrow in their hearts. They felt gratified for Xiao Bai, but they also felt sad about the process. The great ancestor turned around and kowtowed to Tang Zheng. He was sincerely convinced and said gratefully, "Tang Zheng, please accept my kowtow. If it weren't for you, I don't know when I would be able to avenge the imperial family. I can't even imagine what would happen to the realm beyond heaven. You're a member of the imperial family. You're the savior of the realm beyond heaven." Savior. The people of the realm beyond heaven knelt down and bowed to Tang Zheng. They shouted, "Savior." The sound waves rolled like thunder. It spread to the 9 heavens and then fell to every corner of the world. Savior. The people of the world raised their arms and shouted. Their gratitude and respect for Tang Zheng gushed out like a volcanic eruption. Their deafening voices echoed throughout the world. Tang Zheng never thought that he would really become a savior. He never had the consciousness of being a savior. But when he came to this step, he took on this responsibility without hesitation. Yi Dingdang and the others looked at him emotionally. Their eyes were already filled with tears. Their man was a savior. He had just saved the world. Their feelings could not be described with words. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. They were like a gust of wind and flew directly to Tang Zheng. The people of the world only saw a group of fairy-like people flying to the savior. The savior seemed to be flattered and fell directly from the 9 heavens. Suddenly, the group of people exclaimed, but then they burst into deafening laughter. No one was envious or jealous. This was because this was the treatment that the savior deserved. The savior took on such a big responsibility. Naturally, he should enjoy more treatment. As for enjoying so many fairy-like people, it was also a matter of course. Dizang of Goguryeo looked at Tang Zheng and the beauties who disappeared. He chanted the name of Buddha. The Buddha's light shone down and bathed the ghost army. With a flash of the Buddha's light, they all disappeared and returned to the ghost realm. When Xiaobai opened his eyes, they were full of excitement. He waved his fist and flames rose into the sky. There was a flirtatious blood-red flicker in it. The great ancestor hurried over and asked anxiously, "Your Majesty, what are you doing?" Xiaobai said excitedly, "Great ancestor, Saint Realm. I have entered Saint Realm." "What, Saint Realm?" The great ancestor was so excited that he almost fell from the sky. Tears flowed down his old face. He said, "The heavens have eyes. The late emperor has blessed you. Your Majesty has finally reached Saint Realm." Xiaobai's revenge was avenged. The knot in his heart was untied. With Hao Tianwang's blood constantly replenishing him, he had undergone earth-shattering changes. Memories swept over like a tide, filling his mind. These were the memories and secrets of the royal family. When he reached Saint Realm, the seal that was branded in the depths of the soul of every royal family member was automatically lifted. He truly inherited everything of the royal family. At this moment, he truly became the head of the royal family, His Majesty of Outer Sky. He exuded an aura of dignity from head to toe. This was a unique aura that belonged to the royal family, which was different from others. "Where is Master?" Xiaobai asked. The great ancestor looked down. Little White lowered his head to look, but he could no longer see Tang Zheng, but somehow, he seemed to have sensed something, and revealed a mysterious smile with deep meaning. He looked around and looked at the others. He said, "Master is doing something important. Don't disturb them." Ha ha ha. As soon as this was said, everyone understood the meaning behind it. No one disturbed Tang Zheng's happiness. Xiaobai looked at the kunpeng above his head. He pointed his finger and a ray of light pierced through and landed on the kunpeng. He said, "Kunpeng, lead them back to outer sky." The kunpeng's light flickered as it prepared to pass through the spatial gate. "Your Majesty, we want to stay by your side and serve you." "No need. I will return to outer sky soon." Xiaobai waved his hand. The great ancestor and the people of outer sky flew towards the kunpeng. They bathed in the kunpeng's light. The air fluctuated and then they disappeared. The sky returned to its clear state. The Emperor of Heaven and the others also landed with Xiaobai and disappeared from the sight of people all over the world. Tang Zheng and the beauties landed in a valley. The somersault cloud hit the ground with amazing force. No one was injured. However, Tang Zheng's left and right arms were hung by people. Even his neck and back were hung by people. His face was already marked with bright red lipstick marks. Moreover, they were different lipstick marks. In this silent valley, no one came to disturb them. The somersault cloud was like a big bed. It covered the sky and the ground. Chatter and laughter resounded throughout the valley, followed by screams. Chapter 1811. Several days had passed since the end of the world, and all sides had gradually calmed down. However, the mentality of the human race had undergone an earth-shaking change. A new world seemed to be quietly born. This was unavoidable. The various countries had asked Tang Zheng for help, trying to find a way to erase the memory of the human race and restore the peaceful life of the past. In the end, Tang Zheng refused. Whether he could do it or not, it was not advisable to do so. This was the true face of the world. If he forcibly erased the memory of the human race, what if something similar happened in the future? In the dark, Tang Zheng firmly believed that after this catastrophe, the human race might undergo unexpected changes, and the direction of the human race would deviate. As for which direction it would deviate, he still could not figure out the mystery. However, he was sure of one thing, and that was that this would be beneficial to the human race. At certain stages, the human race needed to evolve, and not be a flower in a greenhouse. Protecting all of them would be the real irresponsibility of the human race. As the saying went, the greater the power, the greater the responsibility. Tang Zheng's ability was undoubtedly the strongest among the human race. He had already saved the entire world and had taken on a huge responsibility. Tang Zheng would not abuse his ability, nor would he shirk his responsibility. As for what the various countries' governments would think, he did not care at all. That was because after this calamity, no country would dare to provoke him. Wouldn't that be digging their own graves? What made the various countries feel at ease was that Tang Zheng had no intention of fighting for power, and this gave them a chance to breathe. Although Tang Zheng was the savior, because the battle took place in the ninth heaven, except for a few people, the general public did not know the true face of the savior. Tang Zheng walked on the street, and no one would look at him. This was actually what he wanted. Of course, strolling on the street was almost an extravagant hope, because he had too many things to deal with. Xiao Bai sat down opposite him and humbly asked for advice. He had just reached the Saint Realm, and after the excitement, he had many questions in his heart. Tang Zheng said everything he knew, answering one by one, causing Little White to benefit greatly. Master, the realm beyond heaven has already been unified. I still need to sort out the bad debts left behind by Hao Tianwang. I still need Master's guidance before I can properly govern the realm beyond heaven, Xiao Bai said sincerely. Tang Zheng waved his hand to stop him from continuing. He said, Xiao Bai, you are a member of the royal family of the sky beyond heaven. This is your duty and responsibility. I could help you in the past, but I won't be able to help you in the future. You need to take one step at a time and try it out yourself. Xiao Bai let out an ah sound and said in a panic, Master, without your guidance, how could I do this well? I don't have any experience. Tang Zheng spread his hands and said, I don't have any experience either. Do you think I have experience in running such a big business? Tang Zheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Xiao Bai was at a loss for words. He had to admit that Tang Zheng was right. Then Tang Zheng encouraged, don't be so wishy-washy. Moreover, you have the ancestor and the others to assist you. You also have the royal family's memories. You have it much easier than me. Xiao Bai said resentfully, okay. After hesitating for a moment, Xiao Bai asked, Master, about Yuanying's clone, Shu. Tang Zheng immediately made a hand gesture to silence Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai suddenly understood and immediately covered his mouth. The two of them didn't move and didn't say a word. However, their divine senses were very active and they began to communicate. For the Saint Realm, communicating through divine senses was the most effective method. There was no need for words. In a few seconds, divine senses could communicate a lot. Xiao Bai's expression gradually became serious. It seemed that the situation was more serious than he had expected. Tang Zheng sighed inwardly. This was completely helpless because his every move was being monitored by Yuanying's clone. Apart from divine senses, nothing else could escape the eyes and ears of Yuanying's clone. What are you two plotting with your divine senses? Yuanying's clone lazily stretched in the Zifu and asked. Ever since the battle, Tang Zheng and Yuanying had no choice but to fuse together, the after effects began to appear. Yuanying hid in the Zifu and Tang Zheng couldn't control him, let alone command him. Yuanying's clone was like another living life. It was independent of Tang Zheng, but it also had a huge connection with him. Yuanying's clone had Tang Zheng's appearance and possessed Tang Zheng's magical powers. It even had a part of his emotions. Facing Yuanying's clone, Tang Zheng had an unprecedented vigilance and panic. This was because this was a part of his body. Now that they weren't of the same mind, he was really in trouble. If Yuanying's clone became his enemy, then he would face more serious problems than Hao Tianwang. Now that the heavenly Tao was watching, if he didn't deal with the problem of Yuanying's clone, then his days of suffering would really come. Xiao Bai, regarding Yuanying's clone, you can't tell anyone else, lest they worry. I just went through a catastrophe, I don't want them to worry about me. Tang Zheng used his divine sense and warned. Xiao Bai nodded heavily. Master, don't worry. I'll fight side by side with you, and will definitely defeat Yuanying's clone. However, why don't I have a clone after reaching the saint stage? I'm not sure. Although everyone has Yuanying, whether it's Hao Tianwang or you, none of us have Yuanying's clone. I don't know what's going on with me. Xiao Bai frowned. Then when will this end? We can only take one step at a time. The heavenly Tao has ulterior motives. He can bewitch Hao Tianwang, and naturally, he can bewitch others. We have to be prepared. When you return to the heavens beyond heaven, you can't be careless. Otherwise, it'll be too late if it leads to a disaster. What about the 4 symbols? The 4 symbols return to the heavens beyond heaven with you. He absorbed all the energy of the heaven and earth mystic stones. He also gained a lot. Perhaps there will be new changes in the future. Xiao Bai's eyes lit up. He was overjoyed. Then, will he also reach the saint stage? We can't rule out this possibility. Among so many people, other than the Dizang of Goguryeo, Tang Zheng was most optimistic about the 4 symbols. He predicted that he would definitely reach the saint stage. It was only a matter of time. Master, what are your plans for the future? Tang Zheng was silent for a while. The heavenly Tao didn't come to find me. I've decided to take the initiative to find him. Ah, then do you know where he is? The heavenly Tao is very smart. No one has ever seen his whereabouts. However, the tomes of arcane is a great way to understand the heavenly Tao. Therefore, I've decided to talk to the Emperor of Heaven again. The Fu clan has a deep relationship with the heavenly Tao. If we trace it back, we might find something. Xiao Bai nodded in realization. Suddenly, his heart moved. He asked, Master, after this disaster, I think that no matter if it's the human world, the world of spirits and the heavens beyond heaven, it's not absolutely safe. The boundless world is full of strange things. What if people from other worlds invade? Should we take the initiative to explore other worlds? Tang Zheng had thought about this question more than once. However, he still couldn't make up his mind on what to do in the end. Chapter 1812. Fang Shishir was bashful, as if there was something that was hard to say. Xiao Bai tactfully retreated. Tang Zheng held Fang Shishir's small hand and gently asked, What happened? Fang Shishir looked left and right to make sure there was no one else. She leaned over to Tang Zheng's ear and whispered a few words. Tang Zheng's eyes instantly widened and he almost jumped up from the ground. He exclaimed, What, are you serious? Fang Shishir coquettishly said, Don't make a fuss, everyone else heard it. Tang Zheng hugged her and smiled like a flower. What are you afraid of? It's not something shameful. But I'm not sure, it's just a feeling. Isn't that simple? You're a cultivator, you can just check it yourself. Fang Shishir hesitated, I'm afraid I'll be happy for nothing. Tang Zheng kissed her forehead and said, Silly girl, I'm here with you, don't be afraid. Fang Shishir nodded reservedly and said, Okay, then I'll check it myself. She used her internal energy and everything in her body appeared in her mind. Even the slightest change in her womb did not escape her eyes. Her expression became extremely interesting. She was touched, but also in disbelief. It was as if everything was too magical and she was at a loss. How is it? Tang Zheng asked with concern. His expression was nervous, even when facing Hao Tianwang, he was not so nervous. Fang Shishir gradually came back to her senses and nodded heavily, it's true. Tang Zheng was so happy that he was about to explode. He laughed wildly, Ha ha ha, I, Tang Zheng, am going to be a father. Don't shout, everyone heard it. Fang Shishir shyly lowered her head and punched Tang Zheng's chest, but her heart was full of sweet happiness. She was pregnant. She was also about to become a mother. Moreover, this was the fruit of her and Tang Zheng's love. It was the continuation of their lives. This feeling was too wonderful. She had experienced too many miraculous things, but none of them were as miraculous as this. She couldn't describe it with words. Tang Zheng suddenly squatted down and kissed Fang Shishir's stomach. He rested his head on her stomach and said, Son, can you hear Daddy? Fang Shishir's face immediately turned red. She was both happy and shy as she said, I just got pregnant. I'm still in the embryo. How can I hear you? Really? Tang Zheng's cultivation was profound, but he knew nothing about this. He scratched his head and said, then when can I hear it? I'm not too sure. I don't have any experience. These two rookies were completely clueless about this aspect. However, how do you know that he is a son? Do you prefer sons? Fang Shishir asked. Tang Zheng hurriedly shook his head, no, I just said it casually. Whether it is a son or a daughter, I like them both. That's more like it. Fang Shishir nodded in satisfaction. Do you think this is the time in the valley? Tang Zheng asked. Yes. Fang Shishir hesitated for a moment before replying. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. At that time, Fang Shishir was not the only one. Could it be that the others were also pregnant? Fang Shishir seemed to have seen through his thoughts and said, then you should quickly ask the others. Tang Zheng would not ignore Fang Shishir and said, they didn't mention it, so it definitely didn't happen. Let's talk about your stomach first. Saying this, his hand was already gently stroking her flat stomach. Tang Zheng was startled and made a big fuss. When the others heard the commotion, they all gathered around. When they saw the two of them sticking together like glue, many people were confused. Lan Yu was an experienced person. Rolling his eyes, he slapped Wu Junshan's shoulder and shouted, that's great. This is great news. Wu Junshan almost staggered from the slap and asked in confusion, why are you slapping me? What great news? Lan Yu was not in a hurry to answer. Instead, she strode to Fang Shishir's side and carefully supported her, asking, is it true? Fang Shishir saw that she had guessed it and shyly nodded. Then, she buried her head in Tang Zheng's chest. Lan Yu laughed. Seeing that the others were still confused, she hurriedly explained, Shishir is pregnant. She is pregnant. Boom. This was like a heavy bomb that was thrown into the crowd. Immediately, the crowd exploded. Everyone had different reactions. Many pairs of eyes stared at Fang Shishir, making Fang Shishir happy and shy. Tang Zheng scratched his head. There was no longer any killing intent. Instead, he laughed foolishly and said, Shishir is pregnant with our child. Congratulations, congratulations. The crowd finally reacted and surrounded her. Not even a drop of water could trickle through, treating Fang Shishir as a national treasure. Every pair of eyes focused on her. Yi Dingdang still had a child's heart. She directly leaned on Fang Shishir's stomach and said, you really are pregnant. Wow, there is a baby living inside. Li Xiaotian was pleasantly surprised at first. Then, her eyes dimmed and she could not help but touch her stomach. Wu and Lu Qingmei noticed her movements and subconsciously looked at their own stomachs. It was extremely flat. She was not pregnant. The few of them could not hide the envy in their eyes. They reluctantly stared at Fang Shishir's stomach. Yi Dingdang patted her stomach and pouted, when can I be pregnant? I also want a baby. Ha ha ha. Once these words were said, laughter rang out. Everyone looked at the charmingly naive Yi Dingdang. Feng Xinyang tugged at her daughter's arm and said, you are an adult. You still speak like a child. But without a doubt, Feng Xinyang also wanted Yi Dingdang to be pregnant. After all, it was Tang Zheng's child. However, this kind of good thing was unexpectedly taken by Fang Shishir. Feng Xinyang secretly made up her mind. She must teach her daughter a few moves. She must properly warn her and strive to succeed as soon as possible. Tang Zheng had been foolishly laughing. Seeing the group of people chattering and discussing non-stop, he felt that this was the happiest thing in the world. After surviving a great disaster, one was bound to have good fortune. After experiencing a calamity, he was safe and sound. This was his good fortune. Tang Dahai heard the commotion and also came. When he heard the news, tears flowed down his old face. He held Tang Zheng's hand and said, Little Zheng, Grandpa is so happy. You also have a child. You have really grown up. All these years of heartache flashed through his mind. His nose became even more sour, but his face was brimming with happiness. This is Tang Zheng's first child. From now on, we must ensure Fang Shishi's safety. There must not be any accidents. There must be someone guarding her 24 hours a day. Lan Yu announced. No one refuted. This was a matter of course. Wu Junshan said, Tang Zheng has too many things to do. We must do these things well for him and have a stable background. Everyone knew that the heavenly Tao still existed. They did not know when to attack. The burden on Tang Zheng's shoulders had not been removed. Indeed, there was not much time. Chapter 1813. Fang Shishi had become a national treasure, enjoying special protection and care. After Tang Zheng passed the initial surge of emotions, he gradually calmed down. He still felt like he was in a dream. In the dead of night, he often pinched himself. I'm going to be a father so soon. Am I ready? After asking himself, he got an affirmative answer. His experience was very different from that of ordinary people. Although he was not old, his experience was thousands of times richer than countless people. His mind was mature enough to shoulder the heavy responsibility of being a father. He silently looked forward to the arrival of the little life. At the same time, the responsibility on his shoulders became heavier. The world was dangerous. After the child was born, he would face more dangers. If the crisis could not be resolved, then he could not give the child a safe living environment. He silently made up his mind that he had to solve the crisis in front of him before the child was born. The Emperor of Heaven was concentrating on cultivation. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and found that Tang Zheng had appeared in front of him. The Emperor of Heaven pointed to the chair and said, Sit. I guess you're coming too. Oh. Tang Zheng looked at him in surprise and asked, You knew I was coming? There are not many crises in front of you, and the heavenly path is the most important. Of course you won't sit back and do nothing. Especially now that you have a child, you have to take precautions. This is the responsibility of a man. The Emperor of Heaven said. Tang Zheng nodded secretly. It seemed that after the Doomsday War, the Emperor of Heaven had also undergone earth-shaking changes. He was originally a 9th-grade Mahayana realm cultivator, only one step away from the Saint realm. The Doomsday War seemed to have given him more insights. During this time, he almost did not appear and had been in seclusion to cultivate. When Tang Zheng saw him, he had already seen some clues from bit by bit. Your cultivation is at the most critical moment. The Emperor of Heaven was not surprised. He smiled faintly and said, After seeing your battle, I really have a certain understanding of the Saint realm. That is the realm I am really pursuing. I don't dare to slack off. You will definitely succeed, Tang Zheng encouraged. Changing the topic, Tang Zheng went straight to the point. I want to know everything about the heavenly Tao. I've already prepared the answer for you. The Emperor of Heaven nodded slightly, an array of light shot out from his hand, turning into thousands of streams of light that surrounded Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng looked around. These lights were filled with information, thousands upon thousands of them. His heart skipped a beat, and he reached out with his hand as if he was taking something out of his pocket. He immediately memorized this information. Not long after, all the lights fell into Tang Zheng's hands. He sorted out his thoughts and knew the ins and outs of the matter. The heavenly Tao had never appeared. Perhaps it did not have a physical body. This was because ever since the ancestor of the Fu clan accidentally obtained the heavenly book, generations after generations of comprehending the heavenly book had only cultivated their divine powers. They had never seen the true face of the heavenly Tao. The Fu clan also deduced that the heavenly Tao might not have a physical body. It was illusory and unfathomable. Tang Zheng frowned. If the heavenly Tao was so mysterious, why did it make use of the Fu clan to comprehend the heavenly book and spread the heavenly Tao? What did the heavenly Tao want? A thought flashed through his mind, and he couldn't help but remember Yan Qingyi's words. The Heavenly Tao gave up on the Fu clan and chose Yan Qingyi because the Fu clan did not meet the requirements of the Heavenly Tao, and did not spread the Heavenly Tao to its fullest. This caused the people in the world to know very little about the Heavenly Tao, and there were not many believers. Why did the Heavenly Tao care so much about influence? Tang Zheng racked his brains, but he couldn't think of a reason, so he asked the question in his heart. The Emperor of Heaven pondered for a while, and said, "The brilliant Heavenly Tao, I really can't understand his thoughts." Tang Zheng tilted his head, and stared straight at the Emperor of Heaven. Their eyes met, and time passed by minute. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind, like lightning across the dark night sky. Tang Zheng straightened his body, and asked in bewilderment, could it be that the more people believe in him, the stronger he becomes? This is the source of his power, and that's why he cares so much. What? The Emperor of Heaven was shocked, as if he didn't expect Tang Zheng to say such a thing. For a moment, he couldn't make up his mind, and didn't know how to answer. Do you think it's possible? Tang Zheng asked. The Emperor of Heaven stammered, this seems too mysterious, I can't give an answer. Tang Zheng drew inferences, and the more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible, and said without stopping, look at the various deities worshipped in the temples, they have many believers. Could there be a kind of power of faith in the unseen world? The Emperor of Heaven shook his head, and said, but you haven't seen those deities. Now that we can't do anything, how can there be any deities? It was as if a door had opened in Tang Zheng's mind, and specks of light shone into his heart. He seemed to have understood something, and said, no, I don't think it's that simple. Those deities might not be illusory, maybe they were strong people who appeared in ancient times, and then did something earth-shattering, and then there were believers worshipping them day and night, and the incense kept burning. What about those strong people? If they really have the power of faith, how powerful would they be? Where are they now? The Celestial Emperor asked in return. Tang Zheng was speechless, and pondered for a long time, and said, the greater thousand world, the lesser thousand world, there are so many worlds, what if they have already left the human world, and went to another world? Naturally, we won't be able to see them. Isn't there a world of immortals in the legends? Maybe that's another world, it's just that we haven't come into contact with it yet. Tang Zheng's conjecture stunned the Emperor of Heaven, and he was dumbfounded. Even with his vast knowledge and whimsical imagination, he had never thought of Tang Zheng's conjecture. This made him feel as if he was suddenly enlightened, and unknowingly, he was about to believe it. But so many years of rationality told him that all of this was false, and it was all conjecture. Without substantial evidence, he wouldn't believe it. You don't believe it? Tang Zheng saw the clues in the Emperor of Heaven's eyes, and asked. The Emperor of Heaven smiled bitterly and shook his head, I only believe in facts, you're too vague, it's really hard to convince me. Tang Zheng gradually became more and more confident in his conjecture, and he analyzed, if there really is the power of faith, then everything can be explained. Your Fu clan only quietly comprehended the Heavenly Tao, and didn't publicize it, so the people didn't know about it, and naturally, there was no such thing as faith. This caused the Heavenly Tao to be dissatisfied, so it chose Yan Qingyi. Yan Qingyi is a very ambitious woman, she obtained the true inheritance of the Heavenly Tao, so naturally, she would publicize the power of the Heavenly Tao, and cultivate countless believers, so the power of the Heavenly Tao would be stronger. As for Hao Tianwang, it's the same, he's not the same type of person as us, he's also a person with huge ambitions, and they're all people who would do anything to satisfy the wishes of the Heavenly Tao. Since the Heavenly Tao is so eager to obtain the power of faith, then we can make a fuss about it. Chapter 1814. Tang Zheng had discovered the power of faith and was convinced. The Emperor of Heaven was skeptical and only believed in the facts in front of him. The two had a disagreement. Emperor of Heaven, I will definitely find conclusive evidence to convince you. Tang Zheng said stubbornly. The Emperor of Heaven smiled, then I will wait for that day. That will also solve the mystery in my heart. Let me ask you one more time, where do you want to start? Tang Zheng said confidently, the power of faith is illusory, invisible to the naked eye, and no one has seen it before. This is a difficult problem. But didn't we just discuss it? This is like the legendary Buddha worshipped by people and worshipped by all. Perhaps the power of faith is hidden in it. So, I am preparing to go to the ancient Taoist temple. Maybe I will find something. Ancient Taoist temple. The Emperor of Heaven laughed involuntarily, not knowing what to say. So many people have gone to the ancient Taoist temple and no one has found any clues. You think you can do it? Tang Zheng smiled. After all, they are not me. The Emperor of Heaven rolled his eyes. Fine. But let me tell you, there have been ancient Taoist temples since ancient times. This is something that has been there since birth. I don't know where it came from. When I was young, I also went there, but I didn't find anything. So I thought it was all a trick. Deceiving people can last for tens of thousands of years. This is very worthy of research. I neglected this point before, but now that I think about it, it seems to contain a secret that no one knows. Seeing Tang Zheng so persistent, the Emperor of Heaven helplessly shook his head. Then I will wait for your good news. In the depths of a mountain, clouds and mist lingered, like a legendary fairyland. The mountain road was steep, like a stairway to heaven, extending step by step into the sky. One by one, they prostrated themselves on the moss-covered steps. Every time they ascended a step, they would kneel on the ground and kowtow. Their mouths would mutter some profound scriptures. These people were incomparably pious, eating and sleeping in the open. Their clothes were ragged, and their skin was like old tree bark. But their eyes were clear like a clear spring, and there was a sense of unswerving determination in them. It was said that they were the most sincere believers in the world, and they had to kowtow step by step to show their piety and faith. Tang Zheng had already visited many ancient Taoist temples. Although there were many believers, he didn't find any power of faith, so there was no way to answer his questions. In the end, he heard that this ancient Taoist temple was the most famous and was very effective, so he came to investigate to see if he could find any power of faith. Excuse me, may I ask if what you are doing is of any use? Tang Zheng stopped a believer and asked. The believer was an old lady in her 70s. Her face was full of wrinkles, like ravines, full of the traces of time. She looked kindly at Tang Zheng and said, "This isn't about whether it's useful or not, but a kind of redemption for my soul. After going up the mountain, my soul can be purified. Everyone in the world is sinful, and only this can wash away their sins." Everyone in the world is sinful? Tang Zheng said thoughtfully, man's nature is good at birth, so why must everyone be sinful? In the rolling world of mortals, who can emerge from the mud and remain untainted? The old lady asked back. Tang Zheng pondered for a moment and said, "Are there no exceptions in the world?" The old lady shook her head, "No." Then what kind of deity is on this mountain? There is no deity or immortal, it is the Tao. The old lady said sincerely. Tao. Tang Zheng's eyelids fiercely twitched a few times. He had visited so many ancient Taoist temples, and all of them were filled with deities and Buddhas. But there was no deity or immortal on this mountain, it was the Tao. This word, Tao, deeply pierced Tang Zheng's soft spot, and his interest was immediately piqued. Then what is the Tao? The mysteries of the Tao cannot be described with words, you can only comprehend and experience it yourself. The old lady said mysteriously. Tang Zheng knew that he could not get any more information, so he lifted his feet and walked towards the mountain top. Wait a minute. The old lady hurriedly called out to him. If you go up like this, you will not be able to comprehend the Tao. The old lady anxiously said, afraid that Tang Zheng would make a mistake. Then how do I go up? The old lady knelt down again, and heavily knocked her forehead on the stone floor. She raised her head and said, this is the only way. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily and said, I don't need it. What a joke, a non-existent Tao dared to ask him to kneel down, and kowtow step by step up the mountain. The old lady sighed and shook her head, what a pity, young people are still too impatient, they are destined to have no fate with the Tao. She took another step forward, and heavily knelt down, and sincerely kowtowed. Tang Zheng did not pay attention to the devout believers along the way. When he was halfway up the mountain, he looked back. The steep mountain road stretched as far as the eye could see, and the limestone floor was full of believers. Tang Zheng was shaken, and looked up at the mountain top, pondering, I have never seen such devout believers in the old temple before. Could there really be a mysterious Tao here? Would there be the power of faith? Tang Zheng quickened his pace, and like a gust of wind, there were no longer any believers on the limestone floor, leaving only a bare flight of stairs. At first, he did not find anything strange, but after a while, the mountain road seemed to have no end. With his speed, he would have already reached the top of the mountain. He stopped, and his face revealed a suspicious expression. He looked back, but there were no longer any believers, only a steep mountain road. No, there was something fishy. Bang! He heavily stomped down with one foot, and with a loud sound, the ground cracked, and the mountain shook. The air fluctuated violently, and the trees swayed. But this did not last long, and everything returned to normal. The mountain road was still the same, and there were no more believers. What kind of magic is this? Tang Zheng could already conclude that someone was playing tricks, or that mysterious Tao was playing tricks. The heavenly way liked to play tricks. Could this so-called Tao be the heavenly way? Tang Zheng could not make up his mind. No matter what kind of Tao you were, you could not hide in front of Tang Zheng. Playing tricks, then I will see through your tricks. Swish! The hidden sword flew from his hand, and the sword light flashed. With a shout, the hidden sword cut through the air. Boom! The hidden sword fell on the mountain road, and the mountain road was twisted, shaking violently. With a crack, the mountain road disappeared, and the trees disappeared. Even the mountain disappeared, and everything was empty. What entered his eyes was a sky, and the wind was strong. He did not know when, but he was above the 9 heavens. Camouflage, you actually fooled me. This is not an ordinary trick. Tang Zheng looked serious. With his cultivation of the Saint Plane, he could not see through the trick at first glance, which showed how real this camouflage was. Who do you think you are? You actually dare to play tricks in front of me? Hurry up and reveal your true form. Tang Zheng's voice was like thunder, rolling through the 9 heavens. He waited for a long time, but there was no reply. He looked down, and that nameless mountain was still below. Then I will go down and have a look. Chapter 18:15. At the top of the mountain, a Taoist temple stood proudly by the cliff. Tang Zheng stood at the entrance of the temple and found that the believers were still kneeling devoutly. Some people had already entered the temple and disappeared behind the door. Tang Zheng walked in slowly and knocked on the door. A Taoist walked out and looked at Tang Zheng from head to toe. He waved his hand and said, "This temple does not receive guests." Tang Zheng pointed at the others and said, "Didn't they go in too? They are believers. Are you the same as them?" The Taoist asked. "We are not the same. But if I want to enter this door, which one of you can stop me?" Tang Zheng asked forcefully. The Taoist rejected him and said bluntly, "We do not welcome you." Bang! The door closed and Tang Zheng was actually given the cold shoulder. Tang Zheng's eyes widened in surprise. The other party's attitude was beyond his expectations. He turned to look at the other believers. They also looked up and looked at Tang Zheng with unfriendly gazes. "You should leave. You are not welcome here," a believer shouted at the top of his lungs. It was as if a switch had been turned on. The others were filled with righteous indignation. They pointed at Tang Zheng and shouted, "Scram, leave this place. This is a peaceful place, not a place for you to behave atrociously." The believers changed their previous devout appearance and became hysterical and incomparably crazy. Tang Zheng frowned. These people were not illusions but real people. If they were illusions, Tang Zheng would have already taken action. These people seem to have been cursed. They are like 2 different people. How strange. This temple is indeed strange. The more you do this, the more I want to find out. Bang! He slammed his palm on the door. How could the door withstand his strength? It fell apart with a clang. Suddenly, the world was silent. The believers looked at him in disbelief. They did not expect him to be so disrespectful and break the door. Anger climbed up the believers' brows. They seemed to have become demons from hell and approached Tang Jing step by step. Tang Jing turned around and looked at the believers in surprise. He was not afraid. These people were ordinary people. How could they scare him? He was just surprised by their change. Stand down. He let out a loud roar that was so loud that even the deaf could hear it. This group of people completely stopped. Their bewitched expressions froze, as if they had lost their souls. They stood there in a daze. Go down the mountain. Tang Jing roared again, and the believers all turned around and obediently walked down the mountain. His voice had a kind of magical power, making them unable to produce any thoughts of resistance. It was as if his voice reached straight to the bottom of their hearts, gradually destroying their beliefs. Clap clap clap, a soft sound was heard, as if a bubble had burst. This voice was completely coming from the body of the believer. Ordinary people would definitely not be able to hear it, but Tang Jing heard it clearly. He pricked up his ears and listened for a long time to make sure that he did not hear wrong. He had an idea and raised his head to look at the Taoist temple. Somehow, there was a subtle change in the Taoist temple's aura. It was as if the temple's aura had weakened. This change was very faint, but it did not escape Tang Jing's fiery golden eyes. The power of faith, this is the power of faith. Tang Jing's eyes lit up, as if he had discovered a new continent. He had always been looking for evidence of the power of faith, but he had not found any clues. This time, he had unexpectedly found some clues. These believers had a strong belief in the Taoist temple. His roar was so loud that it could enlighten even the deaf. It had crushed their belief, and the power of faith had also collapsed. The Taoist temple's aura had changed, and the cause and effect of all this was very obvious. Ha ha ha, so that's how it is. Tang Jing laughed wildly as he watched the believers descend the mountain. He then turned around and walked into the Taoist temple in large strides. How dare you spoil our temple's cultivation? A few Taoists rushed out with long swords in hand and arranged themselves in a formation. Sword light swam about as they glared at Tang Jing like a tiger eyeing its prey. Tang Jing did not mind and said with a faint smile, acting all mysterious. Call out the person in charge. Don't let these small fries make a fool of themselves. He walked straight in, not caring about these people at all. These people did not recognize Lu Shan's true colors and treated him as an ordinary troublemaker. With a shake of their long swords, they fell down like snowflakes and attacked Tang Jing. Whoosh! Tang Jing waved his hand and without any movement, the few Taoists flew out and flew over the courtyard wall. No one knew where they flew to, but they had completely cleared the obstacle. Now it's quiet. Tang Jing walked forward and no Taoist came to stop him. He arrived at the main hall and looked up. He wanted to see what kind of deity this Taoist temple was consecrating. This deity was tall and mighty, but his face was calm without any special features. He was neither angry nor happy, and was not similar to the deities he had seen in other ancient temples. The deity statue was pitch black and emitted a mysterious aura. It was exactly the same as the Taoist temple. Tang Jing stared at the deity statue for a long time and said, "Since you don't want to come out, then I will destroy your temple. Let's see how you will bewitch people and bring disaster to the world." From the reaction of the group of followers, this deity statue was definitely not a good thing. Moreover, he suspected that it was related to the heavenly Tao. Naturally, he would not be polite. Swoosh! The hidden profound sword flew up and turned into a ray of light. It lightly slashed towards the deity statue, but anyone could see that the power of this sword was unparalleled. It was likely that it would cut the statue in half. Clang! The sound of a long sword being unsheathed rang out. A ray of cold light illuminated the main hall. The deity statue actually came to life and pulled out a long sword to meet the hidden profound sword. Boom! The two shoulders collided. Like a shockwave, it spread out in all directions. With a rumble, the main hall was cut in half and collapsed. The ruins fell down and buried Tang Zheng and the deity statue alive. The world regained its tranquility. Only the ruins by the cliff were left. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew. A ray of sword light rose from the ruins. It carried the ruins and the wind, flying sand and stones as it attacked. Wherever it passed, the ruins retreated, making a wide path. Tang Zheng's figure appeared from the ruins, just under the longsword. Boom! The longsword fell. The mountain trembled. Half of the cliff was cut off by the sharp sword chi, revealing the smooth mountain. It was straight and smooth like a mirror. The longsword stopped. It stopped above Tang Zheng's head. A hand reached out and two fingers clamped the longsword. The sword's breath disappeared. Cracks covered the longsword. With a crack, the longsword turned into pieces and fell to the ground. Tang Zheng was safe and sound. His eyes flashed and locked on to the deity statue. He deliberately said, "Heavenly Tao, you still don't show up. Why are you hiding? I have figured out your tricks. The power of faith must be very important to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so impatient to build this temple and bewitch so many followers." Chapter 18:16. Tang Zheng stared at the statue and said, "It doesn't matter if you don't speak." Swish! The hidden profound sword flew out, aiming for the statue's neck. The statue waved its arm, but it was cut in two by the hidden profound sword like tofu. Pop! The hidden profound sword struck the statue's neck, and the statue's huge head fell down the cliff. Under Tang Zheng's attack, the statue could not resist at all. Tang Zheng did not expect the statue to be so weak. It was as if it had lost its soul, unable to withstand a single blow. The battle ended so quickly. He did not even have time to interrogate the other side before everything ceased. The trail was cut off. Looking at the fallen statue, Tang Zheng was dejected. He suddenly raised his head and roared at the sky, "Heaven's path, where are you hiding? Come out!" There was no answer, only the biting cold mountain wind that blew incessantly. There's nothing wrong with the power of faith, at least I've discovered this point, and the heaven's path most likely requires the power of faith. Even if this temple has nothing to do with the heaven's path, it must be looking for other methods in other places. As long as I follow the trail of the power of faith, there will always be some clues. In this world, if you wanted to find something or a clue, it would be too easy. All of this was thanks to Li Xiaotian. She was indeed worthy of being the former holy maiden of the Li Palace. It had to be said that the previous palace master of the Li Palace had a very unique insight to discover such a talent. The Li Palace under Li Xiaotian's control grew stronger and stronger, extending to every corner. All kinds of information gathered at the Li Palace, and nothing could be hidden from the Li Palace. When Li Xiaotian received Tang Zheng's call, the colossus that was the Li Palace was activated. Every link burst forth with energy, and it did not take long for the news to come back. There were many ancient temples in the world, and most of them had existed since ancient times. In the past few years, many places had sprung up, and incense was flourishing, with many believers. Among them, there was one place that attracted the most attention. This place was completely different from other places, and it did not fit in. It was simply a strange place, but the key was that there were many believers and incense was flourishing. When Tang Zheng saw this news, he was also puzzled. He felt that it was too strange. If it was in the past, he definitely wouldn't have thought too much about it. But now that he thought about it carefully, he actually felt that there was some mystery behind it. When he arrived at his destination, he was even more shocked by the scene. This is too primitive, too nonsensical. He looked at the mountain of deities and Buddhas, and his head was filled with black lines. This was simply overturning his three views and understanding. This was a barren mountain peak that was divided into countless regions, and each region had a different god. Along the way, he doubted his own eyes. What did he see? The Chariot Temple, the Examination Temple, the Grandmother Temple, the Empress Temple, the Mazu Temple, the Tutti Temple, the God of Wealth Temple. There were all kinds of temples and gods. Among them, there were many original gods that had never existed since ancient times. Most likely, as long as you wanted a god, that god could be created here. It was completely for urgent needs, and it could satisfy all your needs. In addition, the divine statue was also extremely strange. It was draped in red and green and painted with rouge. It was completely different from the ordinary solemn and dignified deities. It was simply perfunctory. As Tang Zheng watched, the scene was too horrible to look at. So many gods gathered on this barren mountain like a hodgepodge, and the sense of dissonance was too strong. If ordinary people heard about this, they would definitely think it was ridiculous and no one would believe it. But the reality was that there were many believers. Countless people lined up and filled the mountain path. There was actually a ropeway built on this mountain. The ropeway continuously pulled people to the top of the mountain, saving time and energy. It was simply too fast and convenient. This was a world of difference from the Taoist temple where one had to worship at every step. It was a completely different style. But the people on the mountain did not feel dissonance. Instead, they were extremely devout. They kowtowed in front of the gods, burned incense, and chanted. The content of their prayers was also varied and there were all kinds of things. He casually asked a believer, and the other person swore solemnly that he was an ordinary person without the demonic behavior of the Taoist temple. But he was also extremely devout and revered these gods. He swore that the gods were very efficacious and would grant any request. He asked a few people in a row, and all of them said that it was efficacious. Tang Zheng could not help but pay more attention. Even if there were gods in the world, they could not be these messy gods. But this place was so efficacious. There must be a mystery behind it. There must be some kind of power that satisfied the prayers of the believers. That was why it was so efficacious. Tang Zheng did not act rashly. He walked around the entire mountain. When night fell and the believers left, he walked out again. Looking at the starry mountain peak, he was deep in thought. The heavenly axiom needed the power of faith, and a single temple's power of faith could satisfy his requirements. Then how could he collect more power of faith as soon as possible? This place had all kinds of functions. There were all kinds of believers. It was simply a net to catch all of them. Wasn't this the best place to collect power of faith? Tang Zheng laughed and said, "Heavenly axiom, you have put in a lot of effort. You really know how to have fun. You have actually played to such a level. What an eye-opener. I wonder if you will cry if I destroy this place of yours." He walked toward the nearest car god temple. Under the light, the statue of the car god looked quite odd. It was holding the steering wheel as if it was a person driving. Tang Zheng did not know whether to laugh or to cry. "Then I'll start with you." He grabbed with his large hand and a wave of energy enveloped the statue. With a cracking sound, the statue seemed to be on the verge of breaking apart. Swoosh! A ray of light shot out from the statue's eyes. The statue came to life and turned the steering wheel in its hands. A car fell from the sky and crashed directly toward Tang Zheng. "Ha ha ha, this counterattack is quite interesting." Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. With a palm strike, the car was split into pieces. Meanwhile, Tang Zheng arrived in front of the car god and slashed out. The car god turned the steering wheel and a steering wheel appeared in midair. It turned into a rope and tried to bind Tang Zheng. Thump! The hidden mystic sword cut through the steering wheel. A crack appeared on the car god's forehead and extended all the way to the ground. The car god was split in two. The light in its eyes receded and it collapsed into pieces. Tang Zheng did not even turn his head and went to the exam god next door. The statue held a pen in one hand and a test paper in the other. It looked like a teacher grading test papers. Tang Zheng did not attack. The pen in the exam god's hand shot out like a blade. The test paper trembled and quickly expanded. It fell from the sky and seemed to want to cover Tang Zheng. Break! Tang Zheng roared. The pen broke and the test paper cracked. The exam god was cut in half and fell to the ground. Everything was calm. Tang Zheng became more and more energetic. He directly grabbed at the other temples. Fierce battles could be heard from every temple. However, they lasted for a short time and stopped abruptly. There were fewer and fewer temples. These random gods had all fallen into Tang Zheng's hands. However, the heavenly axiom did not make a move. Chapter 18:17. There was no movement from the heavenly Tao. Tang Zheng couldn't help but wonder if he had come to the wrong place and this place had nothing to do with the heavenly Tao. Even if that's the case, this place is definitely not a good place. Since I've come across it, then I can't stay here. I must remove this tumor. The sword chi swept through the entire mountain peak, leaving only the temple on the mountain peak. Whoosh! A ray of light shot out from the temple, blocking the hidden mysterious sword. Eh! Tang Zheng's eyes widened in shock. His eyes lit up and he was overjoyed. Strange, this counterattack is different from the other temples. It's much stronger. He flew up and appeared above the temple in the next second. Looking down from above, he realized that all the temples on the mountain were protecting the temple at the peak. There was a way. No matter what the way is, one sword will break it and everything will turn to dust. So, the hidden mysterious sword fell down from high above. A statue rushed out from the temple. It had 3 heads and 6 arms, and on its chest were the words, God of Body. Ha, it's you, omnipotent God. According to the introduction, you are the embodiment of omnipotent and omnipotent. I want to see how you will break my hidden mysterious sword. The hidden mysterious sword's attack suddenly increased. The omnipotent God's hands moved together, shining with golden light. He actually caught the hidden mysterious sword. The sword light overflowed and his palms peeled off layer by layer. However, the omnipotent God still firmly held onto the hidden mysterious sword. Tang Zheng's face sank. This omnipotent God was not normal. It was much stronger than the gods in the temples below the mountain. Tang Zheng, you destroyed my training ground. I will kill you. A roar came out from the omnipotent God's mouth. Tang Zheng was shocked. This omnipotent God could actually speak and recognize him. Who are you, the heavenly Tao? Tang Zheng probed. I am the embodiment of the heavenly Tao, the omnipotent God. The omnipotent God said. Tang Zheng had an idea and said, then you and the heavenly Tao are jackals of the same tribe. You just have to admit this point. Tang Zheng decided to learn from his previous experience. He could not kill the other party with one strike. That way, he would not be able to interrogate the whereabouts of the heavenly axiom. He sized up the omnipotent God as though he was looking at a prey. The omnipotent God was enraged. Kill. Wang. The air vibrated as a circle of ripples appeared in the air, turning into a bloody mouth that bit towards Tang Zheng's head. You dare to embarrass yourself with such petty tricks. Tang Zheng's mouth glowed with lotus flowers as the Kitagarbha Sutra unleashed its might. Numerous golden Sanskrit words flew out from his mouth, wrapping around the bloody mouth and shattering it. More and more golden Sanskrit words appeared, interweaving into a golden kasaya with golden lotuses engraved on it. It descended from the sky and grew bigger and bigger, covering the sky and the sun, covering the omnipotent God's head. You have nowhere to run, so just submit obediently. Tang Zheng roared. The hidden sword of Xian shone brightly. Pu, Piu, the sword chi pierced through the omnipotent God's arm and severed it. The kasaya descended from the sky and covered the omnipotent God. The omnipotent God tried to break free, but it was in vain. The kasaya shrunk and the omnipotent God became smaller and smaller. Finally, it became the size of a palm and flew into Tang Zheng's hands. Tang Zheng opened the kasaya and saw the tiny omnipotent God. He said, "Do you think you can escape from my five-finger mountain?" The omnipotent god struggled in Tang Zheng's hands, but it could not escape. An invisible force imprisoned it, causing all its efforts to be in vain. "Now we can talk. You are the incarnation of the heavenly axiom, so you must know where the heavenly axiom is." Tang Zheng said calmly. "Dream on, I will never tell you." The omnipotent god roared and bared its teeth. "If your believers saw you like this, they would be so disappointed. Who would believe you?" Tang Zheng could not help but laugh as he joked. The omnipotent god shouted, "Nonsense, I have a lot of believers. I can drown you with a mouthful of spit from each of them. Spit can't drown me, but the power of faith is different. If I let you collect too much power of faith, it will really cause me a lot of trouble. Do you think I am right?" Tang Zheng stared at the omnipotent god. The other party was not much different from a real person. Tang Zheng naturally wanted to glean more information from its words and actions. The omnipotent god was shocked and asked in shock, "How do you know about the power of faith?" Tang Zheng was as clear as a mirror. He had guessed correctly. "The power of faith, how can such a little trick fool me? Didn't you create this nondescript dojo to collect as much power of faith as possible? You really put in a lot of effort." The omnipotent god said in disbelief, "How can you know about the power of faith? No one in this world can know about it. That can only mean that I am smart enough to see through your scheme." Tang Zheng did not expect that he would be able to see through the other party's trick on a whim. If the other party collected enough power of faith in the future, who knew what would happen? The omnipotent god sneered, "So what if you saw through it? Our plan is nearing its end and has succeeded. You have no hope." Tang Zheng's expression turned cold. He had a bad premonition and asked, "Could it be that you have more than one dojo?" "Of course, there are so many temples in the world. Do you know which one was set up by the heavenly Tao? After so many years, who knows how much power of faith has been collected? Ha, this world belongs to the heavenly Tao after all. What can you do?" The omnipotent god said proudly. "The heavenly Tao has already carried out the plan. He has prepared several ways. Not only does he have the puppet Yan Qingyi, he has also bewitched Hao Tianwang. And the final trump card is the countless temples in the world." Tang Zheng's face turned pale. The heavenly Tao's plan was too meticulous and secretive. If not for a whim, Tang Zheng would never have thought of this. Now that he had thought of it, the heavenly Tao was about to succeed. The situation was not good. "Where is the heavenly Tao? If you don't tell me, I will make you suffer endless torture and make you wish you were dead." Tang Zheng threatened with killing intent. "In your dreams." The omnipotent god was very stubborn and turned his head. Boom! A ball of flame rose from Tang Zheng's palm and surrounded the omnipotent god. "What kind of flame is this?" The omnipotent god screamed. "Heavenly flame." "What kind of flame is heavenly flame?" "It is a flame that I invented. Let me tell you, heavenly flame can refine many things. One of them is to refine the divine soul. You are the incarnation of the heavenly Tao. Actually, you are just a little bit of divine soul. If I refine you, you will no longer exist in this world." "No!" The omnipotent god screamed. "That won't do." The heavenly flame burned even more vigorously. The omnipotent god's body was unharmed, but his divine soul was gradually fragmenting and could completely disintegrate at any time. Once it disintegrated, there was no way to reverse the situation and he would completely disappear from this world. The omnipotent god screamed incessantly. In the dark night, it was especially mournful, like the cries of ghosts and howls of wolves. I will tell you where the heavenly Tao is." Chapter 18:18. The omnipotent god stammered, "The heavenly Tao is divided into thousands of clones, hiding in all the temples in the world to collect the power of faith and strengthen itself." "All the temples in the world?" Tang Zheng was shocked and asked, "Then how many temples are there?" "I can't say for sure, but there are many." Tang Zheng was deep in thought, then the temple he saw before was definitely one of them. That statue was also one of the heavenly Tao's incarnations, he really didn't see it from afar. However, this wasn't the answer Tang Zheng wanted, he wanted to go straight to the root of the problem, he didn't have that much energy to sweep through so many temples one by one. I don't care about the incarnations of the heavenly Tao, I'm asking you where the heavenly Tao's true body is. Tang Zheng asked with killing intent, the heavenly fire rumbled and burned even more fiercely. The omnipotent God kept screaming, "Stop, stop, stop, let me think." Tang Zheng stared straight at the omnipotent God and asked, I suddenly thought of a problem, you are the incarnation of the heavenly Tao, we are irreconcilable, you should rather die than submit, why are you telling me so much? The omnipotent God said with grievance, there are so many incarnations of the heavenly Tao, it doesn't matter if I have one or not. If I die, it will be my loss, and it will benefit the other incarnations, how can I do this kind of unprofitable business? Huh? The more Tang Zheng listened, the more confused he became. The more he thought about it, the more shocked he became, as if he had discovered something extraordinary. Aren't you supposed to carry out the will of the heavenly Tao? Why do you have your own thoughts? Hee hee. The omnipotent God let out two strange laughs and said, the heavenly axiom has thousands of incarnations, and each incarnation has its own destiny. After collecting the power of faith, it also has thousands of transformations, and has its own will. This is a will that is independent of the heavenly axiom. Tang Zheng said thoughtfully, in other words, in the end, you will carry out the will of the heavenly Tao, but you also have the ability to think independently, to judge the situation and protect yourself? Smart. The omnipotent God praised, no wonder the heavenly Tao sees you as the biggest threat for thousands of years, it's not without reason. You created these messy gods, it seems like you are the one with the most clever mind. The omnipotent God said proudly, this is my original creation, unlike the other incarnations that are inflexible and inflexible. What do you think of my Tao field? Although it's neither fish nor fowl, it has many followers, far more than the temples I've been to before. That's right. Ha, you see it that way too. That means I'm the most successful. If you hadn't come, I would have definitely become the most powerful incarnation of the heavenly Tao. You're not modest at all. The omnipotent God laughed dryly and did not comment. What is the heavenly Tao's cultivation level? How can he create thousands of incarnations? Tang Zheng asked. He only had one Yuanian clone, and this was already a huge mess. He really didn't know how the heavenly axiom dealt with all this. The heavenly Tao has no cultivation. It is an untraceable thing without a physical body. Therefore, it can create thousands of incarnations with just a thought. Take you, for example. Once you break free from the shackles of your physical body, your godly soul can transform into countless parts, omnipotent God explained. The heavenly Tao doesn't have a physical body. Tang Zheng was shocked. This was completely different from what he had expected. He couldn't figure it out. How can a person not have a physical body? The heavenly Tao isn't a person. To be precise, it's just a godly soul, a will, a type of energy that exists between heaven and earth, omnipotent God said. This made Tang Zheng more and more confused. His heart was in turmoil. Then how did it come into being? Tang Zheng had an idea and asked the key question. It was born at the beginning of the world. It was a remnant of energy. At that time, it didn't have spiritual intelligence. It wandered the mountains and rivers and saw the changes in the world. Over time, it gained spiritual intelligence. It saw that the people worshipped the gods and wanted to imitate them. However, it was too weak and couldn't fight against these gods. In the end, it could only hide in a corner and continue to gather energy in secret. What? You said gods. There are really gods in this world? Tang Zheng was shocked and interrupted the omnipotent God. Tang Zheng used to be skeptical of gods. He used to think that gods really existed. However, after he reached the Saint Plane, he realized that gods might really be a legend. This was because, with his cultivation, he had already reached the level that some gods could do. However, he did not find any other gods, so he gradually denied the existence of gods. He thought that it was just some people pretending to be mysterious, a trick to deceive the ignorant. Of course there are gods. They are from another race, not the human race. Another race? Yes, the gods. The creation of heaven and earth was the work of the gods. The more the omnipotent God spoke, the more mysterious it became. Tang Zheng was shocked. He was so excited that he almost doubted his ears. Omnipotent God, are you sure you're not talking nonsense to distract me? Tang Zheng asked in a low voice. The heavenly fire grew stronger. The omnipotent God didn't have the strength to struggle. He could only scream in vain, "You want to hear the truth? I've already told you, but you don't believe me. What do you want me to do?" Tang Zheng took a deep breath and suppressed the waves in his heart. He urged, "Continue. What kind of race is the gods?" The heavenly fire grew smaller. The omnipotent God took a deep breath and continued, "I don't know where the gods came from. I only know that they are very powerful. They rely on the power of faith of their followers to strengthen themselves. The more followers they have, the stronger they become." The heavenly axiom discovered this point and followed it to figure out the power of faith. After a pause, the omnipotent God looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated expression. "You actually thought of the power of faith on your own. I don't know if you're a genius or a monster." Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. It was just a sudden thought. Then where did the gods go? The gods ruled this world for many years. I don't know what happened after that. They left. Then, the heavenly Tao had a chance. He imparted the Tao to the Fu clan. However, the Fu clan couldn't fully understand the heavenly Tao's intention. In the end, they didn't take in a large number of followers to collect the power of faith. Tang Zheng was shocked. If the Emperor of Heaven heard these secrets and understood the inside story of the Fu clan, who knew what he would think? After the heavenly Tao imparted the Tao, its power decreased sharply. For thousands of years, it couldn't impart the Tao again. It could only silently accumulate energy and prepare for a comeback. In recent years, the heavenly Tao finally accumulated enough energy and imparted the Tao to Yan Qingyi. Unfortunately, Yan Qingyi couldn't be used. She was too ambitious and failed at the last step. Then what about Hao Tianwang? That was just an attempt. I hope Hao Tianwang can stop you. After all, you're too strong. Tang Zheng secretly nodded his head, deep in thought, and asked, "Once the heavenly Tao gathers enough faith power, will there be any changes to him?" Chapter 18-19. A True God Race. Tang Zheng quivered, finally understanding the intentions of the heavenly Tao. It turned out that he wanted to be a god race. The strength of the god race could be seen from the omnipotent God's words. The heavenly Tao's ambition is not small. Tang Zheng laughed in ridicule. The omnipotent God asked back, "Don't you want to? The god race is so glorious, it really makes people yearn for it. You want to be a god race too?" Of course. Who doesn't? Tang Zheng shook his head. "I don't want to, actually I'm quite a good person. People have too many ties and fetters, they're not strong enough. Does the god race not have these?" Definitely. Even if you speak of the god race so well, then why is the god race gone today? The heavenly Tao guessed that something must have happened for the god race to leave, and they left in a hurry. When the heavenly Tao becomes a god race, maybe we can solve this mystery. Tang Zheng shook his head and said, "The god race is too far away, we should return to the heavenly Tao. He doesn't have a physical body, so how do you contact him, how do you pass the power of faith to him?" The omnipotent God's expression changed slightly, looking at Tang Zheng in shock. "You can even think of this. It's not hard to deduce. The believers in this training field believe in you and not the heavenly Tao, so the power of faith naturally gathers on you. If the heavenly Tao doesn't come to take it, it can't just let you take it for free, right? These words hit the nail on the head, causing the omnipotent God to be absent-minded for a long time. Then he gave Tang Jing a thumbs up and praised, "Having an enemy like you is the heavenly Tao's biggest regret." "Don't change the topic, answer me," Tang Jing aggressively asked. The omnipotent God stammered, "He will come to find me regularly to take the power of faith." "Then when will he come again?" 3 days later. Tang Jing raised his eyebrows and said, "This training field is destroyed. Will he find out? If he finds out, will he not appear?" "Of course he will find out about this mess." The omnipotent God sighed. "Once he finds out that the dojo has been destroyed, he will definitely not show himself." "Your plan has failed." "Who said that?" Tang Jing smiled meaningfully. "Isn't it just a matter of deceiving everyone? You are the spies of the heavenly Tao. As long as you keep your mouth shut, I can deceive everyone in the world and thus deceive the heavenly Tao." "What are you going to do?" Omnipotent God asked curiously. Tang Jing smiled and waved at the foot of the mountain. Omnipotent God looked around curiously. Suddenly, his pupils dilated as he exclaimed, "Illusion. An illusion that can pass off as real." Tang Jing said confidently, "No one in this world can see through it. Not even the heavenly Tao. If he appears, it doesn't matter if he sees through me, because I will also discover him." "Then why didn't you notice it before?" "You weren't here before." Omnipotent God understood. He was the embodiment of the heavenly Tao. In the dark, he had a mysterious connection with the heavenly Tao. This connection could not be detected by ordinary people, but it could not escape Tang Jing's detection. Once the heavenly Tao appeared, Tang Jing would be able to detect the connection between the two sides. Following the vine to the melon, it would not be difficult to find the heavenly Tao. Omnipotent God was speechless. He could only watch as Tang Jing used his illusion to restore the dojo to its original state. Not even a single detail was changed. "If you find the heavenly Tao, what do you plan to do?" Omnipotent God asked curiously. "What do you think?" Tang Jing asked with a smile that did not look like a smile. Omnipotent God pondered for a moment and said, "You definitely won't let him go, but can you kill him?" "Even if I can't kill him, I still want to meet him." "Aren't you afraid that he will kill you?" "Ha ha ha." Tang Jing laughed. If he could really do that, why would he wait until now and not make a move? Omnipotent God smiled bitterly. "You are indeed too powerful. In just a few short years, you have achieved what you have today. Throughout history, I'm afraid this is unprecedented." "You flatter me." Tang Jing replied with a smile. The next day, the staff and believers of the dojo went up the mountain and did not find anything strange. It was worth mentioning that this dojo was very special. The staff were all believers and were very devout. They were in charge of maintaining order. They worked during the day and got off work at night. This was also why the huge commotion last night did not alarm anyone. After all, this place was very remote and too miraculous. Everyone was in awe of this place. In the past, more or less supernatural things had happened. Everyone was in awe of this place and no one came to visit at night. Early in the morning, everyone saw that the dojo was safe and sound. The last bit of doubt disappeared like smoke in thin air. Tang Jing wandered around the dojo and observed the believers. He gained a lot and had a new understanding of the power of faith. When the incense sticks burned, green smoke rose in spirals. Tang Jing gradually saw something unusual. The green smoke circled around the statue for a while and seemed to disappear. In reality, it turned into a kind of energy. The power of faith. Tang Jing could tell at a glance that this energy was very strange. He tried to absorb it but found that it circled around him and did not merge with him at all. It was completely different from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and the power of the stars. This is the power of faith. It will only be used by me. The power of faith is a very personal energy, no one can take it away. Omnipotent God's voice sounded in his ears. Tang Jing raised his head and looked at the temple of the omnipotent God. He saw the power of faith flying towards the temple of the omnipotent God and circling around it before falling down and disappearing. It must have been absorbed by the omnipotent God. Tang Zheng seemed to have understood something and said, "No wonder the divine race wants to absorb the power of faith. This is indeed a kind of energy that people yearn for." "Now you know how good the divine race is?" Omnipotent God asked. Tang Zheng smiled and said, "What's the use of being good? What does it have to do with me? No one believes in me, so naturally there is no power of faith." This thought was like a key that caused Tang Zheng's head to tremble. He actually had a wonderful idea. Even the omnipotent God, this so-called God that fooled people, could have so many believers, so why can't I? I am the savior of the world. If the millions of people don't believe in me, who will they believe in? He stood there in a daze and looked at the green smoke curling up in spirals. All sorts of feelings welled up in his heart. "What are you thinking about?" Omnipotent God asked. "Do you think I can have believers?" "You?" Omnipotent God shuddered as if he had been stepped on. He exclaimed, "Why would you have such a thought?" His voice was already trembling slightly as if the fluctuations in his heart were very strong. Tang Zheng thought about it and asked, "What's wrong with you? Can't I do it? I think I can give it a try." "No, no." Omnipotent God denied. "You, the incarnation of the heavenly Tao, can do it, so why can't I? Do you think it is easy for me to win over so many believers?" "Oh right." Tang Zheng was reminded and asked the question that had been suppressed in his heart. "How can you guarantee that the prayers of your believers will come true?" Chapter 18:20. The omnipotent divine general explained the methods of the Tao field very thoroughly, and Tang Zheng had to admit that in this aspect, the other party was much stronger than him. "You're saying that as long as you use your power to satisfy the prayers of a few people, 10 will spread to 100, 100 will spread to 1,000, and then you'll be able to continuously attract believers." "Yes, it's very simple." "It is indeed simple." Did the heavenly axiom learn this from the divine race? "This." The omnipotent God stammered. Tang Zheng smiled knowingly. "Sure enough, I didn't guess wrong. All of this was learned from the divine race." "Hey, omnipotent God, do you think it's reliable for me to collect the power of faith?" Tang Zheng asked again. The omnipotent God stammered, not knowing how to answer. Tang Zheng laughed. "You're not answering because you're afraid that I'll do the same, right? It's not that easy." The omnipotent God stammered. "What if I succeed?" The omnipotent God did not speak again. The sky darkened, and the Taoist temple regained its tranquility. Tang Zheng stood in the omnipotent temple, looking up at the starry sky, letting the starlight fall on his body. The celestial chess had already expanded from Dianan to other places. In time, the celestial chess would be set up all over the world, and the world's self-defense would be stronger. Even if they encountered a strong enemy, they could rely on the celestial chess to defend themselves without relying on Tang Zheng. After all, Tang Zheng could not always protect the world. What if he was not in this world? He had to give others the power to protect themselves. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew from afar, pulling Tang Zheng's thoughts back. His eyes lit up as he stared in one direction. "He's here." The omnipotent God was shocked. He did not expect Tang Zheng's senses to be so sharp. The heavenly axiom had just appeared, and before he even got close, he had already discovered it. The omnipotent God had no way of informing him. Tang Zheng flew up and landed in the void. He stared at the empty sky and said, "Heavenly axiom, you're finally here." The night wind blew, but no one answered him. It was as if he was the only one in this world. If an ordinary person saw this, they would probably think that he was an idiot, actually talking to himself in the air. Tang Zheng, on the other hand, was firmly locked in front of him, not giving him any chance to escape. "Heavenly Tao, there's no need to hide anymore," Tang Zheng said indifferently. He walked forward step by step, stepping on the void as if he was walking on flat ground. Boom! A burst of energy, like lava erupting from a volcano, swept towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng casually waved his hand, and a strong wind blew, shattering this energy into pieces. Their first clash was a draw. Tang Zheng, you're still haunting me. I can't believe you actually found your way to my training ground. A deep voice rang out, full of majesty. If ordinary people heard it, they would probably prostrate on the ground. However, this had no effect on Tang Zheng. He said calmly, if you don't want others to know, don't do it in the first place. Heavenly Tao, you thought you were flawless, but you still couldn't escape my eyes. How did you find out? Heavenly Tao asked, puzzled. He thought of the power of faith on his own, said Wan Sheneng, flying up into the air. He thought of the power of faith himself. How did he think of the power of faith? Did you tell him? Heavenly Tao didn't believe him and asked. No, no. Pantheon waved his hand, afraid that Heavenly Tao would misunderstand. However, Heavenly Tao still didn't believe him. Tang Zheng smiled and said, you've really misunderstood Pantheon. It was indeed me who thought of it. Then, I found his special training ground and followed the vine to find the melon. Finally, I found you. Heavenly Tao suddenly realized and said hatefully, Pantheon, I warned you long ago that your training ground was too strange. Sooner or later, it would attract the attention of others. You didn't believe me. Now you know. Pantheon said faintly, but I collected so much power of faith for you. If I didn't do it this way, how could it have such a good effect? Heavenly Tao was speechless. It was indeed as Pantheon said. Heavenly Tao didn't order Pantheon to stop everything for the sake of the power of faith, which led to the current disaster. Tang Zheng smiled and said, Heavenly Tao, you're just burning the bridge after crossing the river and throwing all the blame to him. Actually, I have to admit that he used a lot of ingenuity to create this training ground. It really opened my eyes. Pantheon secretly gave Tang Zheng a thumbs up. Heavenly Tao snorted and said, Pantheon is my incarnation. I'm disciplining him. You don't have the right to butt in. Seeing injustice on the road, I speak up for justice. This is my usual style. Tang Zheng, since you found your way here, you're courting death. Anyway, we'll have to settle this sooner or later, so I'll get rid of you sooner rather than later. You brought this upon yourself. Heavenly Tao said aggressively. Tang Zheng shrugged and said, Heavenly Tao, don't make it sound so scary. We know each other very well. Can you really kill me? Why can't I kill you? Don't think that just because you ruined my plan, I can't kill you. I'm not afraid to tell you that I've already collected enough power of faith. Killing you is a simple matter. Heavenly Tao said proudly. He did not put Tang Zheng in his eyes at all. Tang Zheng took a stance and said jokingly, then let's see who's the real deal. Pantheon, give me the power of faith. Heavenly Tao roared at Pantheon. Pantheon hesitated for a moment and muttered, it wasn't easy for me to collect so much power of faith. I don't even have a share for myself. Hua! A burst of energy rushed out from Pantheon's head. It was like smoke rising in spirals as it floated towards Heavenly Tao. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted and said, power of faith. His figure flashed as he unsheathed the hidden profound sword and blocked the power of faith. He roared, Heavenly Tao, if you want the power of faith, you'll have to go through me first. The power of faith returned to Pantheon's body. Pantheon hurriedly waved his hand and pointed at Tang Zheng, saying, this has nothing to do with me. It's his fault. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily and said, Pantheon, I'm helping you, but you're throwing the blame to me. Heavenly Tao was furious, Pantheon, you're my incarnation. You actually dared to eat and betray others and collude with outsiders. Do you not want to live anymore? Pantheon defended himself, don't listen to his nonsense. I didn't collude with him at all. I'm your incarnation. You have to believe me. Believe you? Then why did you secretly hide the power of faith before? Ah! How did you know? Pantheon turned pale with fright and cried out. Although Pantheon was the incarnation of heavenly Tao, after collecting enough power of faith, he also had his own thoughts. Every time, he would secretly hide a bit of power of faith. Although heavenly Tao knew, he never pointed it out. That was because heavenly Tao believed that Pantheon was his incarnation. No matter what, he would not be able to escape from his grasp. Chapter 1821. Omnipotent God had hidden the power of faith and was now with Tang Zheng, leading him here. Tian Dao could not help but doubt omnipotent God's loyalty. Omnipotent God felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He could not wait to defend himself. Don't misunderstand, although I have hidden the power of faith, I have no ulterior motives. Tian Dao sneered and did not comment. Omnipotent God stared straight at Tang Zheng and said angrily, Tang Zheng, you are framing me. Tang Zheng said with a smile that was not a smile, Omnipotent God, I am helping you. Tian Dao wants to take away your power of faith, don't you want to keep it? Omnipotent God stammered, Tang Zheng, don't try to sow discord, we will not fall for it. Tang Zheng stood between Tian Dao and Omnipotent God and said, now that things have come to this, if we work together to kill Tian Dao, won't the power of faith be yours? Why are you afraid? Don't be impatient, watch how I deal with Tian Dao. Tang Zheng did not say anything more to Omnipotent God, he attacked Tian Dao with an imposing manner. Omnipotent God could not say anything, he could not defend himself, he glared at Tang Zheng's back as if he could spit fire. Tang Zheng purposely provoked Omnipotent God and Tian Dao to create animosity between them, thus preventing Tian Dao from obtaining the power of faith as he wished. As expected, Tian Dao was naturally suspicious. In addition to Omnipotent God's previous record, both sides really developed animosity, allowing Tang Zheng to succeed. Tang Zheng approached Tian Dao step by step, the hidden profound sword flashed with a terrifying light. Tian Dao roared unwillingly, Tang Zheng, you are courting death, I will grant you your wish. The sky was torn apart, countless chi energy flew out, a huge tearing force enveloped Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's expression was stern, his sword trembled, a few sword flowers flew out, blocking the terrifying force from all directions. Then, he aimed at Tian Dao, although he could not see, his chi was firmly locked onto Tian Dao. Tian Dao, let's see where you can run to. So. The hidden mystic sword struck out like a bolt of lightning, hitting a piece of the void. The hidden profound sword stopped, and a huge force was blocking its attack, causing it to be unable to move forward another inch. Tang Zheng and the mysterious hidden sword felt the same way, and only felt a terrifying power enveloping him. He tried to struggle, but it was as if he had fallen into the vast and mighty sea. There was power in all directions, and there was no way for him to break free. Tang Zheng, you can't break free. This is the power of faith. It's different from any other power in the past. It's not something you can resist. Heavenly Tao said proudly. The power of faith? Tang Zheng frowned. He took a deep breath and calmed down. He reached out with his hand and activated the sky-swallowing technique. A black hole appeared in front of him and aimed at the heavenly Tao. So what if you have the power of faith? Do you think you can escape from my sky-swallowing technique? The sky-devouring technique could devour everything, including the power of faith. Whoosh! A strong wind blew in the sky. The power of faith and the air were sucked into the black hole. The sky seemed to be collapsing, and a huge black hole appeared. Tang Zheng's heart trembled. As the tide rose, the boat rose, and the swallowing heaven technique followed the increase in his cultivation, and had long since experienced a rapid change. The sky-devouring technique could probably devour the sky. Sure enough, half of the sky collapsed and was completely sucked into the black hole. As for the power of faith, it was no exception. Ha ha ha! A burst of laughter came from Tang Zheng's body. It was Yuanying's doppelganger. He had been hiding in Tang Zheng's zifu, and Tang Zheng could not control him. Now that the power of faith was sucked into the sky, Yuanying's doppelganger seemed to come alive. He stretched his body and appeared in front of Tang Zheng in the blink of an eye. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank. He exclaimed, "Why did you come out?" Yuan Ying's doppelganger laughed. "Why can't I come out? You can't trap me." Tang Zheng was speechless. The omnipotent god looked at Yuan Ying's doppelganger in a daze, then looked at Tang Zheng. He exclaimed, "Why is there another one? That's his Yuan Ying's doppelganger." Tian Dao was not surprised and explained. "Yuan Ying's doppelganger?" The omnipotent god was shocked. Yuan Ying can actually leave his body and become a real doppelganger. Tang Zheng had seen Tian Dao's countless doppelganger, so he was not surprised by Yuan Ying's doppelganger. He said, "Tian Dao can have thousands of doppelganger, so why can't I have Yuan Ying's doppelganger?" "You're right." Yuan Ying's doppelganger gave Tang Zheng a thumbs up and praised him. Tian Dao snorted. "This is not the same thing. Yuan Ying's doppelganger has the same strength as you, but my doppelganger only has a portion of the divine ability. There's no way you can compare to me." Tang Zheng was enlightened. "Yuan Ying's doppelganger, you're actually a part of Tang Zheng. What's the use of you hiding in his body all day? You should take the initiative." Tian Dao suddenly instigated. As soon as he said this, Tang Zheng sensed Tian Dao's intentions. It was simply too vicious. Yuan Ying was not on good terms with him, and they had many different opinions. Tian Dao was trying to drive a wedge between them. This was to make them fight among themselves, and the consequences would be worse than him trying to drive a wedge between Tian Dao and the omnipotent god. After all, the omnipotent god could not truly contend against Tian Dao, but Yuan Ying's doppelganger was different. Yuan Ying's doppelganger also saw through Tian Dao's intentions. He smiled faintly and shrugged. "If I wanted to take over this body, I wouldn't have waited until now. I also don't need you to instigate me." Tang Zheng sighed in relief. At least Yuan Ying's doppelganger did not fall for it. What kind of person is Tang Zheng? How could he let you have your way so easily? That's not up to him. Right now, I'm more interested in other things. Yuan Ying's doppelganger said proudly. "What things?" Tian Dao asked. Tang Zheng also pricked up his ears. He could not figure out what Yuan Ying's doppelganger was thinking at all. Yuan Ying's doppelganger looked at the black hole and said, Tang Zheng and Tian Dao were both shocked. They did not understand what Yuan Ying's doppelganger meant. Yuan Ying's doppelganger said meaningfully, "Tian Dao, you're full of confidence and think that the power of faith is exclusive to you. No one else can take it for themselves. But I want to tell you that there are no absolutes in this world." "What do you mean?" Tian Dao was stunned for a moment. He said mockingly, "You want to take my power of faith?" Tang Zheng was also shocked. He did not know what Yuan Ying's doppelganger was planning. Yuan Ying's doppelganger said lazily, "What's wrong with that? I just want your power of faith." "Ha ha ha." Tian Dao laughed maniacally. "Nonsense." Omnipotent God shook his head. He also thought that Yuan Ying's doppelganger was whimsical. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. He looked pensive as he stared at Yuan Ying's doppelganger. It was as if he wanted to see through his heart. Yuan Ying's doppelganger winked at Tang Zheng and said, "If they don't believe it, then I'll make them believe it." With that, he charged straight for the black hole. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank. He shouted, "No!" He had already understood Yuan Ying's doppelganger's intentions. Chapter 1822. Yuan Ying's clone gave Tang Zheng a strange smile and flew straight toward the black hole. Tang Zheng wanted to remove the sky-swallowing technique, but it was too late. With a flash, Yuan Ying's clone disappeared into the black hole and appeared in the heaven realm. The omnipotent god looked at this scene in a daze, not understanding what was going on. The heavenly Tao exclaimed, "What is he doing?" Whoosh! The suction force of the black hole suddenly increased, and the heavenly Tao's power of faith poured into the black hole like a flood and disappeared. This abnormality made the heavenly Tao feel alarmed. Tang Zheng sighed. How could he not understand the clone's intention? He and Yuan Ying's clone could not directly absorb the power of faith. When the power of faith was sucked into the black hole and integrated into the heaven realm, the situation changed slightly. Everything in the heavenly Tao could be used by Tang Zheng and Yuanying's clone. Even the power of faith was no exception. Yuanying's clone could not wait to enter the heaven realm so that he could take the power of faith for himself. This had been confirmed. In the heaven realm, Yuanying's clone stood on the top of the tree of life. He opened his arms and roared at the power of faith circling in the air, opening his mouth. Whoosh! The power of faith flowed down like a waterfall and fell into his mouth. Tang Zheng could not stop all of this. He could control everything in the heaven realm. Similarly, Yuanying's clone could do the same. Moreover, Yuanying's clone was in the heaven realm. He was close to the water, so his control of the heaven realm was slightly better than his. Therefore, no one could stop him from absorbing the power of faith. Ha ha ha! The power of faith is indeed extraordinary. Yuanying's clone soared into the sky and soared above the 9 heavens. He was like wind and lightning, majestic and majestic. There was a subtle change in his aura. Tang Zheng stared at him with a burning gaze and then observed himself. However, there was no change at all. His eyes dimmed and gradually understood. Yuanying's clone had done so much. His purpose was obvious. In the past, there was no difference between him and Tang Zheng. Their cultivation levels and strength were the same, and even their mystiques were the same. But from this moment onwards, there was a difference between them. Yuanying's doppelganger had the power of faith, but Tang Zheng did not. This was the dividing line between the two of them. In the long run, the difference between the two of them would only grow bigger and bigger. This was the true intention of Yuanying's doppelganger. He was unwilling to submit to others. A strong sense of crisis arose spontaneously. Tang Zheng had to admit that he had greatly underestimated Yuanying's doppelganger. The clone had its own consciousness and naturally rebelled against the real body. He glanced at the omnipotent God. This was similar to the omnipotent God and the heavenly axiom. The omnipotent God was the incarnation of the heavenly axiom, but once he had his own independent consciousness, he would not be left out. Tang Zheng and the heavenly Tao could not escape this. Yuanying's doppelganger sensed Tang Zheng's thoughts and advised, "Don't be afraid. I've become stronger. This is a good thing. After all, we're all one. I won't harm you." Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. He could not believe these words. Yuanying's doppelganger had put in a lot of effort and schemes. Perhaps he would not do anything to Tang Zheng now, but in the future, if Tang Zheng blocked his path, would Yuanying's doppelganger make a move? Tang Zheng was not completely confident. "Tang Zheng, you still haven't answered me. What exactly is he doing?" the heavenly Tao asked angrily. Tang Zheng glanced at the heavenly Tao indifferently and said, "You've calculated everything, but you've miscalculated one thing." "What?" "Nothing is absolute. Your power of faith is not that safe." He can take your power of faith for his own use." Tang Zheng's voice was not loud, but to the heavenly Tao and the omnipotent God, it was like a bolt from the blue. They cried out in unison, "Impossible." The omnipotent God's expression suddenly changed. The heavenly Tao did not have a physical body and could not see his face, but one could imagine the raging waves in his heart. The heavenly Tao's voice became low as he asked, "How did he do it?" Tang Zheng pointed at the black hole and said, "After your power of faith enters the black hole, everything has nothing to do with you. In the dark, subtle changes have occurred, and he can take the power of faith for himself. So that's how it is." The heavenly Tao seemed to be gnashing his teeth. Back then, the God race was unable to take the power of faith for themselves, but you did it. This is too inconceivable. The omnipotent God sighed in amazement and seemed to be very afraid. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank as he asked, "Is that so? It seems that the God race is not omnipotent. What I can do, they can't do." Tang Zheng did not revere and worship the God race as much as the heavenly Tao. From the looks of it, the God race was not omnipotent. At most, they were more powerful. The heavenly Tao was silent for a long time before hitting the nail on the head and saying, Tang Zheng, raising a tiger is inviting calamity. In the long river of history, I have seen too many of these things. I have to remind you. Tang Zheng's face was expressionless, but waves had already risen in his heart. He pretended to be calm and said, Heavenly Tao, you don't have to sow discord. The matter between him and me will be settled between us. Now, let's settle the matter between us. It was because of the uncertain factor of Yuan Ying's doppelganger that Tang Zheng wanted to cut the Gordian knot and solve the problem of the heavenly Tao. Then, he could deal with Yuan Ying's doppelganger. The heavenly Tao snorted angrily and said, You are stubborn and refuse to give up. Tang Zheng laughed and said, When have you ever given up? You have harmed me time and time again and almost caused this world to be destroyed in the hands of Hao Tianwang. Not only me, but you are the enemy of the entire world. I am only seeking justice for you on behalf of others. The heavenly Tao said disdainfully, Humans are like ants. They are just a race that lives in this world. How can they be worthy of seeking justice from me? In the long river of history, it would be easy for me to destroy this race if I wanted to. Tang Zheng's expression turned cold and said, If you look down on humans so much, then why do you still need to use them to absorb the power of faith? That's the last of their value. Tang Zheng shook his head and said, Heavenly Tao, you look down on humans, but let me tell you, I am also a human. You have already broken away from them. To be precise, you are no longer a pure human. The heavenly Tao corrected. Tang Zheng said stubbornly, No, at any time, no matter what realm I am in, no matter where I go, I am still a human. This is my root. I decided from the moment I was born and will never change. You are stubborn and have completely abandoned yourself. I am willing. If you choose to be with ants, then you are also ants. The heavenly Tao flew into a rage and roared, causing a gust of wind to blow in the air. Rumble. The training hall actually flew up and the huge mountain peak kept shrinking. What are you doing? The omnipotent God exclaimed. The heavenly Tao said with killing intent, Of course I am killing him. Omnipotent God, you are my incarnation. Do you really think that with your own consciousness and some tricks, you can escape from my five-finger mountain? I am not Tang Zheng. I am not that stupid. Bang! Chapter 1823. The mountain peak turned into a giant seal, and with a flash of light, the two words heaven-suppressing appeared on the seal. You have destroyed my temple. Universal God was pained as he beat his chest. Tian Dao sneered, So what? Not only will I destroy your temple, I will also take you in. The heaven-suppressing seal fell from the sky, not towards Tang Zheng, but towards Universal God. Universal God screamed and used all his skills in an attempt to stop it. Pang! The heaven-suppressing seal landed on Universal God's hands, and with a loud explosion, his arms were blown to pieces. Universal God screamed, Tian Dao, what are you doing? You are my incarnation, I can let you out, but I can also take you back. Tian Dao said calmly. The omnipotent God was shocked. He had a bad premonition and begged, Don't. Too late. With a loud boom, the heaven-suppressing seal landed on Universal God's body, and he had no way to resist at all. The two words on the heaven-suppressing seal flickered, and seemed to have gained a bit of spirituality. Tang Zheng's expression changed as he saw through the clues. You took Universal God into the heaven-suppressing seal, and raised its grade, right? Good eye. You have the hidden sword, and I have the heaven-suppressing seal. We are both saint weapons. Do you think we still have a chance of winning? Tian Dao asked proudly. Tang Zheng did not comment, whether we have a chance of winning or not, we will see soon. Swoosh! The hidden sword flew out, and Tang Zheng disappeared, becoming one with the sword. Whoosh! The heaven-suppressing seal flew towards the hidden sword. It was not big, but the terrifying power it gathered was chilling, as if the sky was falling down. Pang! The two swords and seals clashed, and sparks flew everywhere. No one was at an advantage. The hidden sword was like the wind and lightning, and as fast as lightning, it turned back and left marks on the heaven-suppressing seal. The heaven-suppressing seal trembled slightly, and suddenly changed direction, smashing onto the hidden sword. The hidden sword bent into a huge arc, as if it was about to break. Wang! The hidden mystic sword deflected the seal of heaven suppression away. Tang Zheng's figure appeared. He held the hidden sword in his hand and stared at the heaven-suppressing seal like a tiger watching its prey. He said, "Heavenly Tao, although you don't have a physical body, I know you can take human form. Why don't you show yourself openly? Who do you want me to become?" Whoosh! The air fluctuated, and Fang Shishir appeared in front of him. Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched as he bellowed, "Change back. You're not allowed to taint Shishir." "Ha ha ha, you've reminded me. You have so many important people. If I turn into them one by one, can you still bear to kill them?" As he spoke, whoosh whoosh whoosh, the surrounding air began to tremble. Familiar faces appeared one after another. Yi Dingdang, Lu Qingmei, Mu Hongyan, Wu He, and Li Xiaotian all looked at Tang Zheng with smiles on their beautiful faces. Tang Zheng was furious as he roared, "Heavenly Tao, you're digging your own grave. Then you'll have to pass this first." Heavenly Tao was not afraid at all. His voice stopped abruptly, and then, a familiar voice came out from everyone's mouth. "Tang Zheng, don't hurt me. Don't look at me like that. It's so scary." One by one, they begged pitifully, but they approached Tang Zheng step by step and reached out to grab him. Tang Zheng did not move as he watched them approach. Looking at the familiar faces and voices, his heartstrings trembled a few times. Seeing that they were within reach, Tang Zheng's eyes flashed and he attacked like lightning. Bang bang bang. Palm after palm hit their bodies, all of them exploded and turned into a chaotic flow. They did not even have time to scream. Tang Zheng snorted and said, "Heavenly Tao, you think you can disturb my mind by changing their appearance? You're wrong. You can only change their appearance, but you don't have any of their charm. You're not them at all. How can you disturb my mind?" Amazing, amazing. Heavenly Tao sighed and changed the topic, "But so what? Once I kill you, none of the people around you will be able to escape. All of them will accompany you." Tang Zheng was unmoved and said with killing intent, "Then I have to destroy you even more." Whoosh! Tang Zheng firmly locked onto Heavenly Tao. The hidden profound sword was aimed at him and stabbed over. The heaven-suppressing seal was extremely fast and blocked the hidden profound sword. Both sides fought more and more fiercely, but no one could do anything to the other. The sky gradually became bright. The earth-shattering battle had long alarmed the crowd. Mortals only dared to watch from afar as the morning sun shone on them. The complicated expressions on their faces could be seen clearly. "Ha ha ha, Tang Zheng, didn't you claim to be the savior of the world? Then I'll fulfill your wish once more." Heavenly Tao laughed. Boom! With a loud sound, the heaven-suppressing seal flew towards the crowd. Before it even got close, the ground had already collapsed, unable to withstand the terrifying power of the heaven-suppressing seal. The crowd screamed and ran in all directions, but there was no way to escape the attack range of the heaven-suppressing seal. Tang Zheng turned pale with fright. The Heavenly Tao was too cunning, it actually attacked innocent humans. Shameless! Tang Zheng roared. The hidden profound sword flew out and turned into a ray of light. Rays of sword light intertwined and formed a sword net above everyone's head. Boom! The heaven-suppressing seal hit the sword net and the sword net broke into pieces. The hidden profound sword bitterly held on and did not retreat even half a step. The heaven-suppressing seal closed in, causing the hidden profound sword to suffer. Tang Zheng also did not have it easy as his face became pale. "Ha ha ha, this is the taste of being the savior of the world. I really don't know what you're thinking. They're just a group of mortals. It's fine to use them, but you're willing to sacrifice yourself to save them? What's the point? Heavenly Tao mocked. I'm a human. I, Tang Zheng, naturally have to save my people. Tang Zheng clenched his teeth and retorted. His voice was like thunder, exploding in everyone's ears and imprinting in their hearts. It's him. The Savior. The crowd was freed from the heaven-suppressing seal, but they did not escape immediately. Instead, they screamed in realization and pointed at Tang Zheng. Although a period of time had passed since the end of the world, and Tang Zheng was fighting fiercely with Heavenly King Hao in the ninth heaven, most people would not be able to see it clearly. However, at some point in time, the name of the person who turned the tide had spread. People called him the Savior, but they had not seen him in person. Now, they finally knew that the blurry young man in midair was the Savior. They were both surprised and happy. Bang, bang, bang. Everyone knelt down and kowtowed to Tang Zheng. They did not care about the crisis in front of them. Long live the Savior! People shouted loudly and sincerely. Ha, what a bunch of ignorant ants! Death is at hand and you're still kowtowing. Heavenly Tao snorted and said disdainfully. Tang Zheng was burning with anxiety. He kept waving his hand and shouted, "You guys leave quickly. It's dangerous here. I'll deal with Heavenly Tao." The Savior does not care about his own danger and bravely fights a strong enemy. It's admirable. People's hearts surged with stormy waves as they firmly remembered Tang Zheng's vague appearance. Which god in the world is more efficacious than the Savior? He is really protecting us. This is something that can be seen and touched. It's not something that those illusory gods can compare to. When I go back, I'll build a golden body for the Savior and worship him in the cultivation field. Chapter 1824. In the end, Tang Zheng withstood the pressure of the Heavenly Tao and gave the innocent people a chance to escape. However, people turned back 3 times with every step they took, deeply imprinting Tang Zheng's figure in their minds. From then on, all over the country, dojos related to the Savior Tang Zheng sprang up like bamboo shoots after the rain. Of course, this is a story for later, so it won't be mentioned for now. In order to avoid hurting the innocent, Tang Zheng forced the Heavenly Tao step by step to a deserted place. Both sides chased each other and actually headed towards the great northwest. In the distance, a towering tree that towered into the sky came into view. The Tree of Life. Both sides were very familiar with it. Before the Heavenly Tao could react, Yuanying's clone had already shouted in the heaven realm. Don't you want to completely defeat the Heavenly Tao? The Tree of Life is the key to victory. What do you mean? Simple. The Tree of Life can only be encountered by chance. If you absorb the energy of this Tree of Life into the heaven realm, once the heaven realm becomes stronger, it will definitely be beneficial to you. You will be able to defeat the Heavenly Tao. Yuanying's clone said patiently. However, Tang Zheng was more cautious and asked, the Tree of Life is related to the human world. It is the symbol of the big world. Once I absorb the energy of the Tree of Life, won't the human world be finished? For the time being, the human world will definitely be fine. Even if it is a small world, it will not immediately explode and disappear. Yuanying's clone explained. Tang Zheng did not believe it and said, I will not risk the lives of so many people. Don't you want to defeat the Heavenly Tao? Other than that, do you have a second way? Tang Zheng was silent. He really had no other way. Believe me. You and I are one. Why would I harm you? Once the 2 trees of life merge, the heaven realm will undergo earth-shattering changes. Then, it will become a different scene. That will be a real mature world, not this embryonic form. Yuanying's clone was very excited and persistently persuaded. A mature world, what is that? Tang Zheng's heart moved. He knew nothing about this, but Yuanying's clone knew more about the heaven realm. Of course it's the same world as the human world. No, it's a world that's better and more advanced than the human realm. Yuanying's doppelganger vowed solemnly and was filled with yearning. Tang Zheng immediately understood and said, you mean a world where humans can live? Of course, not only humans, all creatures can live there. That will be a flourishing world. Moreover, entering and exiting the heaven realm doesn't have to risk your life. We can completely control your life and death. We are the rulers of the heaven realm, the gods of the heaven realm. As long as you enter, you must listen to our orders. Yuan Ying's clone's words were very tempting and provocative. Tang Zheng heard the hidden meaning behind the words, and his heart thumped. He suddenly realized a problem. Wasn't this also the case when the world was first created? Humans were dominated, and the gods were high and mighty. They were the rulers and the objects of worship of the humans. Back then, the humans were so similar to the heaven realm. Could it be that humans were accidentally created by the Protoss, just like the heavenly realm? Then, step by step, they created all living things and humans, and then played the game of raising humans, and humans were equivalent to their pets or prey in captivity. Hiss. Tang Zheng sucked in a breath of cold air. His mind was unsettled, and he was completely shocked by his own guess. If that was really the case, then the origin of humans had been found. However, it wasn't that wonderful. Humans could also be pets, just like the cats and dogs of today. Don't let your imagination run wild. So what if the truth is like this? We have already broken away from the identity of humans. We can also dominate others, be the high and mighty gods, and be worshipped by others. Yuan Ying's doppelganger said unceasingly. His words showed that he was yearning for this. Nonsense. Tang Zheng reprimanded loudly. Yuan Ying's doppelganger's face was flushed red. He said, although the heavenly Tao is an enemy, I agree with his point of view. We are so powerful, so why should we be limited to this world and our current achievements? People walk towards greater heights. We should have greater goals and dreams. You mean to be a god and control the life and death of others? Can't I? No. Why? I am also a human. If the God clan had really dominated us back then we would have been livestock, allowing them to do whatever they wanted. Does that feel good? Tang Zheng asked. Of course it doesn't. That's why we have to change our roles. We can't be controlled by others, we have to control others. Ha ha ha, you're twisting words and forcing logic. Tang Zheng criticized in disdain. Don't do to others what you don't want done to yourself. Don't you understand this principle? Yuan Ying's doppelganger couldn't win the argument. He said with an angry snort, in any case, this matter must be done. It's useless even if you object. Tang Zheng had never thought that he would disagree with Yuan Ying's doppelganger so quickly. This was a fatal difference. If it wasn't handled well, Yuan Ying's doppelganger might become the second heavenly Tao. He gazed forward. The heavenly Tao couldn't be seen, but he knew it was right in front of him. All of this was caused by the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao was the fuse. If it weren't for him, Yuan Ying's doppelganger wouldn't have thought about this. Controlling the life and death of others and enslaving humans? Then what were they? He would never allow such a thing to happen. Seeing Tang Zheng's fluctuating expression, the heavenly Tao asked curiously, what are you thinking about? Tang Zheng glared angrily and said, Heavenly Tao, all of this started because of you. If I don't destroy you, there will be endless trouble in the future. Don't even think about escaping today. Swoosh. With that, the hidden mysterious sword slashed out once again. The oasis below split open and turned into a canyon. The heaven-suppressing seal met the attack head-on. The ground caved in and became a bottomless pit. The two sides exchanged blows and turned the place into a mess. They were approaching the tree of life step by step. Tang Zheng was apprehensive of Yuan Ying's doppelganger and didn't want to get close to the tree of life. However, the heavenly Tao was leaning toward the tree of life. He had no choice but to chase after it step by step and persevere. Boom! The aftermath of an attack landed on the tree of life. A ray of light rose from the tree of life and blocked the aftermath. Meanwhile, the tree of life trembled and buzzed, swaying continuously as if it was about to topple over. Heavenly Tao, don't hurt the tree of life. You want to become the god of this world, but you don't want to destroy it, right? Tang Zheng reminded. The Heavenly Tao was slightly startled and said, "You've thought it through. This tree of life can't be lost." With that said, Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. Both sides had reached an agreement on this matter. At least the tree of life was preserved. However, before he could rejoice, small black holes appeared around the tree of life. They tore the space into thousands of holes and completely enveloped the tree of life from its roots. "What are you doing?" Tang Zheng suddenly had an ominous premonition and screamed in shock. The Heavenly Tao was also shocked and shouted, "Tang Zheng, what are you doing?" Chapter 1825. The Heavenly Tao mistakenly thought that all of this was done by Tang Zheng and shouted angrily. "It's not me." Tang Zheng explained, "It's Yuanying's clone." "What does he want to do?" the Heavenly Tao asked. "You gave him a direction, he also wants to become a god." Tang Zheng said helplessly. The Heavenly Tao was stunned and laughed disdainfully. "Who does he think he is? He's just a clone and he wants to become a god. What a joke." The Heavenly Tao did not put Yuanying's clone in his eyes at all. "Heavenly Tao, you really have a problem with your eyesight. No wonder after so many years, you still can't become a true god. Your vision limits your realm." The voice of Yuanying's clone came out of the black holes and echoed in the air like a loudspeaker, resounding through the clouds. The Heavenly Tao was shocked and flew into a rage. "A mere clone dares to speak such arrogant words. I want to see what method you have to become a god. A method you can't even dream of." Yuanying's clone said proudly. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A strong wind blew between heaven and earth as a huge suction force came out of the black holes and locked onto the tree of life like chains. Rumble rumble rumble. A loud sound came from underground and the ground trembled. "What are you doing?" the Heavenly Tao asked in horror. Tang Zheng sighed and said, "Isn't it obvious? He wants to absorb the tree of life into the black holes." "What?" the Heavenly Tao cried out in disbelief. He had never thought of this even in his dreams. Tang Zheng went straight to the point. "Yuanying's clone wants to use the tree of life's energy to become a god in the heavenly realm." "Heavenly realm?" the Heavenly Tao said thoughtfully. "The world where you trapped Yan Qingyi, right?" "Yes." Tang Zheng did not hide it and said, "Once the tree of life is absorbed into the heavenly realm will undergo a huge change and Yuanying's clone will become a god in the heavenly realm, omnipotent and completely controlling the heavenly realm." Heavenly Tao exclaimed, "Then he will become a true god." In the Great Thousand World, it was precisely because the divine race controlled certain worlds that they could become the divine race. They could seize the power of a world for their own use. The higher the level of this world, the more powerful the god race will be. Tang Zheng's eyebrows twitched. This was the first time he had heard this argument. "I have never paid attention to your heaven realm. Now, it seems that I was too careless. If I had known earlier, I would have destroyed your heaven realm. Wouldn't I not have to worry about this?" The Heavenly Tao was filled with regret. "Ha, it's too late for regrets. Just watch as I become a god." Yuanying's clone laughed. The Heavenly Tao said coldly, "I won't let you succeed." The Heavenly Tao knew very well that if Yuanying's avatar became a god, he would be in danger. Even if he did not have a physical body, Yuanying's avatar could still destroy him. This was a moment of life and death. The Heavenly Tao changed the topic and said to Tang Zheng, "Tang Zheng, you don't want Yuanying's avatar to become a god, right? Why don't you join forces with me to stop him?" The Heavenly Tao actually wanted to join forces with Tang Zheng to fight against Yuanying's avatar. This shocked Tang Zheng. The Heavenly Tao's direction changed too quickly. Yuanying's avatar said sarcastically, "Heavenly Tao, in order to achieve your goal, you are really unscrupulous. You even used such a method." The Heavenly Tao disagreed and said, "As long as I can achieve my goal, what is this? Do you think Tang Zheng will agree to you? Who doesn't know your ambitions?" If he joins forces with you and destroys my plan, wouldn't that be helping you? Once you become a god, the first one to be unlucky will be him. After all, I am his identity. Even if I become a god, I won't be a threat to him. Do you think he will still help you after analyzing the pros and cons? Yuan Ying's avatar's analysis was clear and logical. Every sentence was on point, poking at Tang Zheng's heart. Tang Zheng's expression kept changing as he hesitated. The heavenly Tao asked anxiously, Tang Zheng, what do you think? Time is of the essence. If you don't make up your mind, it will really be too late. There's nothing you can do. Tang Zheng suddenly raised his head and glanced at the Tree of Life, then looked in the direction of the heavenly Tao. His eyes gradually became firm as he said in a clear voice, Heavenly Tao, I am your enemy, not your friend. No matter what the situation is, I can't help you. I have seen everything you have done. How can I not understand your character? If you succeed one day, there will be no way for me to live. Not only me, but I'm afraid the entire world will become your plaything. How can I let you do as you wish? These words were powerful and resonant, completely destroying the last trace of hope in the heavenly Tao's heart. His anger was like an erupting volcano, enveloping this space. Only his roar could be heard echoing between heaven and earth. Tang Zheng, you will regret it. Tang Zheng was unmoved and turned a deaf ear. Ha, heavenly Tao, have you given up now? Yuan Ying's avatar seemed to have known this would happen and said proudly. You are jackals of the same tribe. Even if Tang Zheng doesn't help me, I'm not afraid of you. The heavenly Tao said firmly, but everyone knew that he was stubborn. If he was really confident, he wouldn't need to ask for help from Tang Zheng. Then let me go. I want to see how you will stop me. Yuan Ying's avatar snorted and said disdainfully. Rumble. The loud noise below the Tree of Life became even more intense. It was as if countless roots were being pulled out from the soil and rocks. A dazzling light soared from the Tree of Life. Tree of Life, why are you resisting? This will do you more good than harm. Yuan Ying's avatar advised. Swish. What answered him was a resplendent light that enveloped the terrifying power that was locking the Tree of Life in an attempt to stop all of this. Unfortunately, your resistance is useless. You will only make me succeed faster. As expected, after the Tree of Life split into two, the rumbling sound from the ground became even louder. The Tree of Life began to tremble violently, as if it was going to be uprooted at any moment. Stop! The heavenly Tao roared and turned into a tornado that rushed over. The tornado split into two, then four, and finally countless tornadoes that resisted the suction force of the black hole in an attempt to shatter those chains. It's futile. Yuan Ying's avatar said disdainfully. The black hole suddenly expanded and the suction force increased. The sky was filled with devastation, completely occupied by the black hole. Ha ha ha, am I right? You can't stop all of this. Tree of Life, come. Bang, bang, bang. The tornadoes exploded one after another, unable to resist the suction force of the black hole and were torn into pieces. The Tree of Life gradually pulled out from the soil and slowly flew toward the black hole. Chapter 1826. The heavenly Tao had completely lost its mind and roared crazily, You forced me to do this. Even if we perish together, I will not let you succeed. Boom. Boom. A series of loud noises came from the sky. Then, cracks appeared in the sky. It was as if a terrifying force had torn the sky apart. At the same time, cracks appeared on the ground, turning into ravines, turning the oasis into a scene of devastation. The heavens fell and the earth cracked. When Tang Zheng saw this scene, his eyelids twitched violently. The heavenly Tao was really going all out. Hoo hoo hoo. Violent gales raged, and the sky turned into an azure hell. Heavenly Tao, stop. Are you trying to destroy the human world? Tang Zheng cried out in shock. Tian Dao was furious. You forced me to do this. So what if the human world is destroyed? I won't be destroyed. None of you can stop me. Ka ka ka. Chasms appeared one after another, rapidly spreading in all directions from the Tree of Life, as if it really wanted to cut the earth of this world into countless pieces. Yuan Ying's doppelganger, you should stop as well. Tang Zheng was at his wit's end and could only advise the other one. Ha ha ha. Yuan Ying's doppelganger laughed maniacally. Tang Zheng, you can't stop him. So what if he destroys the human world? We still have the heaven realm. When the time comes, we can still survive. Nonsense. The human world is our foundation. What good will it do to destroy it? Tang Zheng retorted. So what if I destroy a world that doesn't belong to me? You should just watch the show. The heavenly Tao is just struggling in its death throes. It's useless. Yuan Ying's clone said disdainfully. Even if it's a deathbed struggle, I'm going to drag you down with me. Heavenly Tao was hysterical. He had already lost his rationality and was going crazy. Whoosh! Whoosh! Strands of black chi extended from the chasm like shackles, firmly grasping the Tree of Life. At the same time, a lot of black gas appeared in the cracks in the sky and rushed toward the black hole. Unknowingly, the sky gradually darkened, as if a curtain of darkness had been drawn. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted as he felt an ominous premonition. Ever night descends. The heavenly Tao said proudly, that's right. If I can teach Hao Tianwang's descent of eternal night, then I can definitely use it as well. Furthermore, my attainments are far above his. Do you think I don't have a way? You're all wrong. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. He had seen the descent of the eternal night before and knew that it was an extremely powerful divine ability. If the heavenly Tao's attainments in the descent of the eternal night far surpassed Hao Tianwang's, he had no confidence in his heart. He didn't know if Yuan Ying's clone could withstand it. Yuan Ying's doppelganger's voice became low. He knew this very well, but there was no turning back. He had no choice but to charge forward. Yuan Ying's doppelganger wasn't intimidated. Her voice became high-pitched again, filled with boundless fighting spirit. Then I'll test your descent of eternal night. Let's see if my sky-swallowing technique is stronger or if your descent of eternal night is stronger. Boom! The black hole spun rapidly. The endless darkness within seemed to have a magical power that could devour everything. Sky-swallowing. Tang Zheng shivered. He immediately recognized that this was Yuan Ying's doppelganger activating the highest level of the sky-swallowing technique, sky-swallowing. Ever since Tang Zheng had completely mastered the sky-swallowing technique, he had yet to truly unleash its full power and display the full might of the sky-swallowing technique. Therefore, even he himself wasn't clear about the true might of the sky-swallowing technique. One person used the descent of the eternal night, while the other used the sky-swallowing technique. They were like two sharp needles against an awl. There was no clear answer as to who would emerge victorious. Tang Zheng let out a long sigh and said, Heavenly Tao, you want to destroy the world. If you hadn't done so, I might have been able to remain neutral. But you want to drag the world down with you, so don't blame me. Whoosh! He rose into the air, stepped on the somersault cloud, and dove down toward the black shackles. The hidden profound sword glowed with a dazzling light. It descended from the sky and turned into a giant sword, as if it wanted to slash apart the world. Tang Zheng, you still helped him. Heavenly Tao was furious and roared incessantly. You forced me to do this. Tang Zheng said helplessly. Then all of you can come at me together. All of you must die. Heavenly Tao's killing intent soared to the sky, and a chain was flung toward Tang Zheng. Boom! The hidden profound sword struck the chain, causing it to break inch by inch. Tang Zheng did not even have the time to catch his breath before the broken bits of black aura once again gathered together. A new chain was reborn. The chain stirred, and the aura of the world was stirred up, turning into a black tornado. It roared as it swept toward Tang Zheng. The somersault cloud was fast and nimble, shuttling back and forth around the tornado. With a few rumbling sounds, the tornado exploded, and the hidden profound sword once again shattered the chain. That dazzling sword light dispersed all the darkness. Ha ha ha, Tang Zheng, good job. You and I are one, so we should work together to resist Heavenly Tao. Let him be completely finished. Yuan Ying's clone was overjoyed and couldn't stop laughing. Whoosh whoosh. The power of the sky-swallowing technique was raised to the extreme. The black hole became bigger and bigger, spinning faster and faster. The tree of life sped up and flew toward the black hole. As for those black chains, they couldn't stop the power of the black hole. Heavenly Tao shouted, Tang Zheng, go to hell. Tang Zheng was a sage, a true expert. Heavenly Tao couldn't ignore his attacks, especially under repeated attacks. Heavenly Tao couldn't help but be distracted, and still couldn't easily kill Tang Zheng as he said. Tang Zheng also saw this point, and sped up his attacks. One chain after another was cut off, as if he had cut off Heavenly Tao's left and right arms. Heavenly Tao roared non-stop, and it was clearly injured. Eternal night descends. Suddenly, Heavenly Tao roared, and the sky completely darkened. The light between heaven and earth seemed to be absorbed, as if someone had turned off the light switch in the dark night. Heaven and earth fell into darkness, and one couldn't see their fingers in front of them. Darkness gathered from all directions, and an earth-shattering power acted on Tang Zheng's body, as if it wanted to crush him into pieces. The descent of the eternal night is indeed not to be underestimated. Tang Zheng cultivated the chaotic Vajra spell, so it was easier said than done for this dark energy to crush him. His entire body flickered with golden light, like a Vajra. Other than dispersing the power of darkness, it was unable to harm him at all. However, his breathing quickened a little. After all, the pressure was not to be underestimated. The tree of life was surrounded by darkness, and even the light it emitted was much weaker, as if it was about to be devoured by the darkness. Yuan Ying's clone roared, devour the heavens. Boom! The earth trembled and soil flew into the sky. Rocks flew out from the ground and quickly flew towards the black hole. A moment later, a huge hole appeared. The ground seemed to have caved in, and even more soil and rocks flew towards the black hole and disappeared. When the Heavenly Tao saw this, it turned pale with fright. Are you really going to suck this world away? Swallow the heavens, could it be that you can really swallow the heavens? How could there be such a heaven-defying ability in this world? Boom boom boom. Chapter 1827. The earth caved in and the sky was torn apart. The darkness that pervaded the world was also torn apart. Light penetrated through the cracks like rays of dawn. The embodiment of the way of the heavens actually felt that it was difficult to control its body and mind and wanted to fly towards the black hole. The way of the heavens roared, don't even think about succeeding. So. A figure slowly appeared in the void. The air fluctuated violently as circles of ripples spread out in all directions, creating a great momentum. Tang Zheng had already broken free from the shackles of the darkness. His entire body flickered with golden light, like a golden man. His pupils shrank as he stared at the newly appeared figure and cried out in alarm, the way of the heavens. He saw that this person was extremely handsome. His long robes fluttered in the wind and his eyes were like lightning. He was like a celestial being. You finally revealed your true body. I thought you really didn't have a true body. Tang Zheng coldly said. The way of the heavens stared at Tang Zheng with bright eyes. He gritted his teeth and said, you forced me to do all of this. He opened his hands and waved them towards the world. The darkness of the world once again gathered and enveloped his body. Let's see what other moves you have. Tang Zheng was not afraid. He held the hidden profound sword and turned into a ray of light, charging into the darkness. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The sounds of an intense battle resounded through the world. Without the restriction of the way of the heavens, the Yuanying clone's attack power increased greatly. A roar seemed to come from the black hole. The tree of life approached the black hole and with a flash of light, the black hole swallowed half of the tree of life. The tree of life's light immediately dimmed. A powerful airflow was produced between heaven and earth, shaking the world. The soil on the ground rose up and flew into the black hole. A bottomless hole appeared. It was as if the entire world was about to be sucked into the black hole. Boom! With a loud sound, the darkness in the sky was torn open and could not be healed. The way of the heavens and Tang Zheng's figures appeared once again. Blood dripped from the hidden profound sword and Tang Zheng's body was also injured. Blood flowed down the soles of his feet. Tian Dao looked at Tang Zheng in a wretched state. He was startled and said in disbelief, "You can actually hurt me." Tang Zheng snorted coldly and said, "You and I are both saints. What's so strange about me injuring you?" At the same time, Tang Zheng's mind was in turmoil. He was someone who cultivated the primal chaos Vajra spell, and his entire body was impregnable, but he was still injured by the heavenly Tao. Good, very good. Tian Dao gnashed his teeth. Suddenly, his gaze turned and landed on the Tree of Life. His eyes widened as he roared, "The two of you work together flawlessly. The Tree of Life is really going to fall into your hands." Tang Zheng also saw this scene and sighed inwardly. Yuan Ying's avatar was really too smart, not letting go of any opportunity. Now, half of the Tree of Life had already entered the black hole. Even Tang Zheng might not be able to save the situation. This time, Yuan Ying's clone succeeded. Tang Zheng lowered his head and looked down at the bottomless cave. For a moment, he was a little absent-minded. A crazed expression suddenly surfaced on Tian Dao's face as he shouted, "Let's perish together. No one will be able to survive." Whiz! With that said, the heavenly Tao turned into a ray of black light, leaving behind an afterimage in the sky. Like a meteor streaking across the sky, it flew towards the Tree of Life. Tang Zheng came back to his senses and was shocked. He shouted, "Heavenly Tao, what are you doing?" The heavenly Tao did not answer Tang Zheng, but his actions had already explained everything. Bang! The heavenly Tao collided with the Tree of Life, causing a ball of black light to explode. The heavenly Tao disappeared, and the black light quickly climbed up the Tree of Life like maggots. Only half of the Tree of Life was exposed outside the black hole, but the black light enveloped this half of the Tree of Life, resisting the suction force of the black hole. Roar! Suddenly, Yuan Ying's clone roared and descended from the sky, landing in front of the Tree of Life. He flew into a rage and said, "Heavenly Tao, do you want to stop me like this?" The heavenly Tao's voice sounded, "I have merged with the Tree of Life. Can you still suck me into this black hole?" The heavenly Tao seemed to be quite confident in himself and did not believe that Yuan Ying's clone had this ability. Yuan Ying's clone was silent for a while, then he snorted and said, "You've really used the sky-swallowing technique." With that said, the black hole suddenly expanded like a bloody mouth, occupying half of the sky as if it wanted to swallow the world. Tang Zheng sucked in a breath of cold air and roared, "No!" He soared into the sky, and a vast amount of energy broke through the air, interweaving into a large net and covering the world. Whoosh whoosh! A strong wind blew as the Tree of Life flew into the black hole again. The heavenly Tao roared hysterically, "How is this possible? The sky-swallowing technique could actually ignore him and swallow him along with the Tree of Life." The heavenly Tao could not help but panic. On the other hand, Tang Zheng gritted his teeth and bitterly held on. His cheeks turned red at first, then gradually turned pale as his power was quickly consumed. His power enveloped the earth, resisting the sky-swallowing technique's divine might. He also knew that this was a drop in the bucket and that it was impossible to succeed, but he did not give up. "I must hold on." Tang Zheng gritted his teeth, and his expression gradually became firm. Sky-swallowing technique. Yuan Ying's clone shouted, and the suction force of the black hole suddenly increased, and a strong wind wrapped around the Tree of Life. Whoosh! The Tree of Life accelerated toward the black hole, unable to resist. The heavenly Tao screamed, "No!" The black light receded from the Tree of Life like a receding tide, but it was all too late. The strong wind did not give the heavenly Tao a chance and rushed into the black hole in the blink of an eye. At the black hole, the black light gathered together with difficulty and turned into the heavenly Tao's appearance. He tried his best to escape. However, he could no longer escape. Boom! The heavenly Tao exploded and shattered, turning into wisps of black light that were completely swallowed by the black hole and disappeared, turning into vast and mighty energy that merged into the heavenly realm. Seeing this, Tang Zheng shouted, Yuanying, stop, don't use the sky-swallowing technique. Yuanying glanced at Tang Zheng, jumped into the black hole, and disappeared. The black hole disappeared, and the world returned to normal. It was no longer threatened by the sky-swallowing technique. This world was temporarily saved. Whoosh! Tang Zheng gasped for breath, looking at the empty sky, disappointed and frustrated. Was the heavenly Tao really destroyed just like that? He had never thought that the heavenly Tao would disappear in such a way, especially when it was inextricably linked to him. Tang Zheng. Yuanying has such a great harvest, what is he doing? Tang Zheng's mind moved, and his divine sense entered the heavenly realm, and he was immediately shocked by the scene in front of him. The tree of life rose from the ground and grew into the sky. Countless amounts of energy fell from the sky and were completely absorbed by the tree of life. The tree of life's light became more and more dazzling. At the same time, there were also bits of black light falling. Yuanying's clone stood on the treetop of the tree of life and raised his head to devour the black light. Chapter 1828. Yuanying's clone rapidly expanded. In a short while, it became even taller than the tree of life. It was a true giant. The terrifying aura emitted from his body made one's heart skip a beat. Even Tang Zheng was no exception. He seems to be undergoing some subtle changes. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Rays of light rushed out from Yuanying's clone. Immediately, the heaven realm was bathed in purple light. Even the light of the tree of life could not compete with it. Ha ha ha! Suddenly, a burst of wild laughter resounded throughout the heaven realm. It was like rolling thunder that exploded above the 9 heavens. At the same time, a mysterious and powerful aura was emitted from Yuanying's clone and filled the heaven realm. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. He realized that Yuanying's clone had completed some kind of transformation. He had actually guessed it, but he did not dare to be sure or believe it. So this is what it feels like to be a god. Yuanying's clone was pleased with himself. He stretched his muscles and took a step forward. The ground cracked open, and a bottomless ravine appeared. Finally, it became a rift valley. God! A complicated look flashed across Tang Zheng's eyes. His guess had actually come true. Yuanying's clone had really advanced to become a god. The heavenly axiom had worked tirelessly and dreamed of it for so many years. In the end, it did not succeed. Instead, it benefited Yuanying's clone. He had actually succeeded just like that. The energy of the tree of life and the heavenly axiom had helped him cross this tall threshold. Tang Zheng stopped in his tracks as he was blocked outside the door, unable to experience the feeling of a nascent soul avatar. However, he knew that he might not be able to trap Yuanying's clone anymore. Perhaps Yuanying's clone could still threaten him. However, he did not escape. Facing Yuanying's clone, he had nowhere to run. The heaven realm was closely connected to him. Yuanying's clone could find him through the heaven realm at any time. Yuanying's clone's laughter stopped abruptly. He raised his head and looked at the 9 heavens. He knew that there was a pair of invisible eyes watching everything, watching him. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank as he looked at Yuanying's doppelganger. He could see Yuanying's doppelganger, but Yuanying's doppelganger couldn't see him. However, the blazing gaze of Yuanying's doppelganger seemed to be able to penetrate the layers of barriers and truly see Tang Zheng. Are you scared? Yuanying's doppelganger teased. Tang Zheng's expression turned cold, and he said, "You're from the god race, I'm not afraid of you." "Ha, is that so?" Yuanying's avatar strode forward. Although it was far away from Tang Zheng and was not in the same space, the violent aura that rushed towards him still caused Tang Zheng's spirit to surge. So this is the god race? There is indeed a world of difference between it and the Saint Realm. Tang Zheng suppressed the surging tide in his heart. His will was firm, and he said without changing his expression, "Don't scare me in the heaven realm. If you want to kill me, come to the human realm." Yuan Ying's doppelganger stopped and said with a smile, "Haha, don't worry, I won't kill you. You and I are one. If you die, it won't do me any good." Tang Zheng frowned, half believing and half doubting. He didn't completely believe what Yuan Ying's doppelganger said. The other party was more cunning than him. If he believed him so easily, it would be too late for regrets. "It doesn't matter if you don't believe me. Anyway, from now on, you and I won't interfere with each other's business." Yuan Ying's doppelganger shrugged and said lazily. Tang Zheng didn't comment and asked, "Then what do you plan to do next? Do you want to know?" Tang Zheng didn't deny it and asked directly, "Will you still attack the human realm?" This was the question that Tang Zheng was most concerned about. If Yuan Ying's doppelganger insisted on doing things his own way and still wanted to absorb the human realm into the heaven realm, then he would fight Yuan Ying to the death even if he had to sacrifice himself. Yuan Ying's doppelganger understood Tang Zheng better than anyone else. Naturally, he also thought of this point. He shook his head and said, "I'm already a member of the god race. Why would I care about the human realm?" Tang Zheng sighed in relief. "Don't worry, I won't attack the human realm," Yuan Ying's doppelganger promised. Tang Zheng had no other choice but to believe this promise. "As for what I should do next," Yuan Ying's doppelganger's lips curled and he said with a meaningful smile, "According to the heavenly Tao, the god race is a very powerful race. Since I'm already a member of the god race, I should go and find them." "What?" Tang Zheng was shocked. Yuan Ying's doppelganger actually wanted to go and find the god race? Did you forget what the heavenly Tao said? The god race isn't that simple, and they aren't necessarily friendly. Aren't you just seeking your own death if you go? Tang Zheng asked loudly. "Oh, is this related to me? Ha, after all, we come from the same origin, yet you still care about this friendship," Yuan Ying's doppelganger said. Tang Zheng coldly snorted and said, "I'm not thinking about any friendship. I just don't want others to say that my doppelganger is actually an idiot." Yuan Ying's doppelganger wasn't angry and said indifferently, "You're wrong. Since I've become a member of the god race, I should lead the god race and create a glory that belongs to the god race. Right now, no one knows about the god race, and their reputation isn't well known. This is too much of a waste. It's simply a stain on the god race's reputation. I will change this terrible situation and let the god race shine in every world." Yuan Ying's doppelganger's face flushed red with excitement. Tang Zheng stared at him in a daze and couldn't help but be speechless. Crazy, proud, condescending, there seemed to be no words that could describe him perfectly. Tang Zheng shook his head and didn't think about this problem. This was no longer something he could control. He casually asked, "Then are you going to leave?" "No." Yuan Ying's doppelganger's answer surprised Tang Zheng. His eyelids twitched and he said, "The heaven realm hasn't been perfected yet. How can I just leave? What does the heaven realm need to be perfected?" Tang Zheng asked curiously. Yuan Ying's doppelganger smiled and didn't answer. He quickly took action. With a wave of his hand, a torrential rain fell from the sky and nourished the earth. The rumbling sound of water came from those ravines and accumulated more and more until they became large rivers. The flood gathered in one direction and finally formed lakes and seas. At the same time, a loud noise came from underground. Mountains rose from the ground. Some were tall, some were short, some were dangerous, and some were strange. Mountain peaks decorated the heaven realm. Yuan Ying's doppelganger waved his hand again. All kinds of trees and plants broke out of the ground. They were lush and verdant, turning the heaven realm into a colorful world. "It seems that something is missing," Yuan Ying's doppelganger muttered to himself, completely ignoring Tang Zheng's surprised gaze. Tang Zheng wasn't just surprised, he was horrified. This was an unprecedented emotion. Even he couldn't control it and revealed all his true feelings. With just a wave of his hand, the nascent soul avatar had done something that he had never been able to do. He had transformed the heaven realm into a completely different world. Hearing that he was missing something, Tang Zheng frowned and subconsciously thought about it. Chapter 1829. Yuan Ying's doppelganger sensed Tang Zheng's doubts and went straight to the point. Don't you feel that it's a little less lively? Tang Zheng looked down at the vast heaven realm. It was lush and full of vitality. How could it be lacking in vitality? To be exact, it's lacking in vitality, Yuan Ying's doppelganger said in high spirits. Tang Zheng's expression changed abruptly. He exclaimed, "You want to create a human?" Yuan Ying's doppelganger raised his head proudly and stared at the sky. Why not? Didn't you hear what the heavenly Tao said? Humans were created by the God race. I'm already a God race. Is there a problem with creating a human? Tang Zheng's emotions surged. He was truly stunned. Can you really create a human? Yuan Ying's doppelganger nodded without hesitation. Of course. You're only at the saint realm. You can't experience the infinite power of the God race. Of course, you can't imagine it. Tang Zheng seemed to be in a mess. I'm also a human. You actually want to create my own kind. Why not? Yuan Ying's doppelganger asked back. Tang Zheng was speechless. It's useless for you to object. I've already made up my mind. Yuan Ying's doppelganger said unquestionably, you're very lucky to be able to witness this historic moment. Tang Zheng moved his mouth, but in the end, he didn't say anything to dissuade him. He had no way to dissuade him. He could only watch helplessly. Yuan Ying's doppelganger waved his hand. A clump of soil flew up from the ground and fell into his palm. The soil changed in his palm, gradually becoming crystal clear and emitting a luster. Suddenly, a blazing light exploded in his palm and enveloped his palm. He couldn't see any specific changes anymore. Tang Zheng didn't dare to relax at all. He didn't want to miss any details. This was exactly the same as the legend of creating a human by pinching soil. Yuan Ying's doppelganger was actually recreating the legend. Perhaps in a few years, the actions of Yuan Ying's doppelganger would also become a legend. Bang! With a loud explosion, the ball of light exploded. Yuan Ying's doppelganger smiled and stared at the center of her palm. The light dispersed, and a lifelike little person appeared. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted. Indeed, he could feel a surge of vitality from this little person. This was a real person. To be exact, it was a woman, but her physique was too small, only the length of an arm. Her entire body was naked, and her curves were exquisite. Her figure was excellent. What do you think of my humanoid creation skills? Yuan Ying's doppelganger asked as if he was presenting a treasure. Tang Zheng gritted his teeth and said, it seems too small. Ha, what's so difficult about that? Yuan Ying's doppelganger flipped his palm, and the little one fell from his palm and landed on the ground. When her bare feet touched the ground, she grew with the wind. Not long after, she had become as tall as an ordinary person. Tang Zheng was dumbfounded. This was simply a miracle. The woman was not embarrassed by her naked appearance. Instead, she had a solemn expression as she knelt down in front of Yuan Ying's doppelganger and said, Exalted God. Exalted God. These two words caused Tang Zheng's heart to be filled with mixed feelings. Yuan Ying's doppelganger had really become a legendary god. Yuan Ying's doppelganger smiled faintly and nodded in satisfaction. You are too lonely in this world alone. I'll find you a companion. As soon as he finished speaking, a ball of soil flew into his palm. Just like before, a majestic and powerful man appeared. Yuan Ying's doppelganger flipped his palm, and the man fell to the ground and grew up. He knelt down in front of Yuan Ying's doppelganger and said, Exalted God. Yuan Ying's doppelganger nodded in satisfaction. This pair is interesting. You guys go ahead and create humans. I want this world to be full of vitality and surging with people. However, you are created people, so how can you be the same as ordinary people? Tang Zheng sensed something and asked, what are you going to do? Yuan Ying's doppelganger pointed his finger, and 2 rays of light entered the space between the man and woman's eyebrows. Immediately, their bodies bloomed with light and were filled with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. There was no doubt that at this moment, the 2 of them had become cultivation geniuses. Their bodies were undergoing earth-shattering changes. After a while, they had actually reached the Mahayana realm. Since this is the heavenly realm, then you are naturally celestials, not mortals. Since the moment you were born, you were cultivation geniuses that were 1 in 10,000. You have advantages that others can't compare to. These are the people I created. Yuan Ying's doppelganger said loftily. The words celestial made Tang Zheng speechless. Yuan Ying's doppelganger was so arrogant that even he was ashamed of his inferiority. What do you think of what I did? Yuan Ying's doppelganger asked complacently. Tang Zheng opened his mouth but could not say anything negative. He could only tell the truth. Amazing! Ha ha ha! Yuan Ying's doppelganger laughed wildly. It is because you and I are one that I know the weight of your 2 words. Good, with your 2 words, everything is enough. I am very satisfied. Tang Zheng was resentful and did not know how to respond. Yuan Ying's doppelganger said again, there is no longer anything for me to linger in the human world. I am leaving. Are you really going to look for the god race? Tang Zheng asked. Of course, goodbye. We will definitely meet again. Yuan Ying's doppelganger cupped his hands and said. Goodbye. Tang Zheng spat out these 2 words with difficulty. Suddenly, the heavenly realm fluctuated violently. Tang Zheng was shocked and asked, what are you going to do? Since I am leaving, the heavenly realm will naturally leave with me. You want to take the heavenly realm away? Tang Zheng was shocked. He really did not expect this. Yes, the heavenly realm will integrate into the upper-class world and grow and develop rapidly. One day, it will become a dazzling new world. Yuan Ying's doppelganger said with certainty and was very bewitching. Tang Zheng realized the subtlety and asked anxiously, then I will never see the heavenly realm again? No, after all, you have contributed to the creation of the heavenly realm. I will give you a privilege to let you witness the development of the heavenly realm. Can't you only enter the Langya Pavilion once a month? Then I will also set a time limit for you. You can enter the heavenly realm once a month. This way, you can witness the development of the heavenly realm with your own eyes. Yuan Ying's doppelganger was high and mighty, but Tang Zheng was helpless because he had completely broken away from the control of the heavenly realm. Yuan Ying's doppelganger was the true master of the heavenly realm. Tang Zheng did not decline this privilege. To be honest, he was also very curious about what kind of changes would happen to the heavenly realm. You can also continue to use the sky-swallowing technique. The energy absorbed will become nutrients for the heavenly realm, nourishing and strengthening it. Yuan Ying's doppelganger said, however, you might not do so. After all, the master of the heavenly realm is no longer you. You might not do such a thing. Tang Zheng snorted and did not comment. Yuan Ying's doppelganger did not mind and said, I'm going. As soon as he finished speaking, Tang Zheng's consciousness was kicked out of the heavenly realm. When he used the sky-swallowing technique again, he found that there was no trace of the heavenly realm at all. From then on, the heavenly realm was really separated from him and had nothing to do with him. He could only enter the heavenly realm again after a month. He did not know what the heavenly realm would be like by then. Chapter 1830. The tree of life was no longer there. Tang Zheng looked at the mess below and felt sad. There were too many ups and downs in the human world. Seeing that the human world had been promoted to a boundless world, he did not expect that the reality was too cruel. Now, it was back to its original state. Where would the fate of the human world go? Both the world of spirits and the human world had become small worlds that could be annihilated at any time. Tang Zheng immediately felt that the responsibility on his shoulders had become heavier. These 2 worlds are related to me. I must not let them be destroyed. Moreover, this matter was caused by Yuanying's clone. I am duty-bound. Tang Zheng silently made a decision to find a solution. He took a last look at the scene of devastation and was about to leave. In the distance, many figures flew over. Boom! A thunderbolt sounded in the sky, and a door opened. The Ghost Gate. Tang Zheng recognized it. Rich Yin Qi was pouring out from the Ghost Gate. Tang Zheng stopped in his tracks as he guessed the reason. It must be the fierce battle just now that caused the world of spirits and souls to shake. After all, the world of spirits and the human world were a mother and child world with a mysterious connection. Dizang of Goguryeo came. Tang Zheng saw Dizang of Goguryeo come out of the Ghost Gate alone and slowly landed beside him. Dizang of Goguryeo looked dignified, especially when he saw that there was no trace of the Tree of Life and the devastated ground. He had already realized the seriousness of the problem. What happened? Dizang of Goguryeo could not wait to ask. I felt an abnormal fluctuation in the world of spirits and hurried over. What's going on? Sigh. Tang Zheng sighed and did not rush to explain. Dizang of Goguryeo's heart thumped. For Tang Zheng to have such a reaction, it must be a big deal. Moreover, the Tree of Life was missing. Dizang of Goguryeo had already vaguely guessed something. Tang Zheng pointed into the distance and said, when they come, I'll explain it to them. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva looked up and nodded in understanding, not saying a word. The atmosphere became very stifling. Even though the two of them were top-notch experts, they felt like their hearts were being pressed down by a 1,000-pound boulder. Tang Zheng, what's wrong? You found the heavenly Tao? The Emperor of Heaven impatiently asked as a group of people rushed over. When the others saw the mess below, they were all shocked. Especially when they didn't see the Tree of Life, a few of them cried out in alarm. Where is the Tree of Life? Whoosh! Whoosh! Everyone's expression was incomparably solemn, as if their hearts had fallen into a bottomless abyss. Tang Zheng waved his hand, indicating for everyone to be quiet. Everyone immediately kept quiet out of fear and stared at him. Cough cough. Tang Zheng coughed twice to clear his thoughts and said, everyone, listen to me carefully. The Tree of Life has been completely lost from the human world and will never come back. Although everyone was aware of this serious situation, when they heard Tang Zheng confirm this point, they couldn't help but gasp and exclaim that it was impossible. However, the truth was right in front of them. Tang Zheng couldn't possibly lie to everyone. So, after the initial shock, they all stopped and stared at Tang Zheng. Is it the doing of the heavenly Tao? The Emperor of Heaven asked in a deep voice. He had the deepest relationship with the heavenly Tao. In the past, he believed in the heavenly Tao and thought that it was the great Tao of the human world. It was the great Tao that he tirelessly pursued. Later on, he discovered that he was ridiculously wrong. Even his ancestors had been deceived. The heavenly Tao only wanted to use them. Moreover, the heavenly Tao was very narrow-minded. In order to achieve its goal, it would do anything. This was the opposite of the Emperor of Heaven's beliefs. So, he gradually gave up on the so-called heavenly Tao and turned to pursue his own Tao. Tang Zheng wholeheartedly wanted to find the heavenly Tao. That earth-shattering and earth-shattering battle just now could be said to be a battle with the heavenly Tao. The heavenly emperor found it hard to imagine who else in this world had the ability to do so. Tang Zheng understood the Emperor of Heaven's thoughts and said, the heavenly Tao has indeed come, but the Tree of Life was not taken away by him. It was someone else. Hiss. When these words were said, everyone sucked in a cold breath. Someone else? Who else in this world had the strength to take away the Tree of Life under the eyes of Tang Zheng and the heavenly Tao? They didn't dare to imagine or believe it. This was simply a fantasy. Tang Zheng understood their thoughts and no longer kept them in suspense. He said truthfully, it was my Yuanying doppelganger. He took away the Tree of Life and absorbed it into the heavenly realm. From there, he helped himself to become a god. He finished speaking in one breath, but the amount of information contained in it was too much. Everyone opened their eyes wide as if they were listening to a book from heaven. Even the Emperor of Heaven and Dizang of Goguryeo, two knowledgeable people, were confused. They grasped the key point at the same time and asked in unison, "What is a god?" The others asked at the same time, "Why didn't Yuanying's doppelganger listen to your command? How could Yuanying's doppelganger be so powerful?" Tang Zheng understood their feelings and quietly listened to their questions. Then, he said in a low voice, "This is a long story." He narrated everything from the beginning to the end. No one said anything because their minds were greatly impacted. Tang Zheng's words opened the door to a whole new world for them. They were like Granny Lu entering the Grand View Garden. They were shocked and captivated. For a moment, only the sound of their hearts beating violently and the fluctuating tide of their hearts could be heard. Huff, huff, huff. The sound of rapid breathing rose and fell one after another. Tang Zheng looked at them quietly. The Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva was the first to react. He was filled with emotion as he said, "I always thought that the saint realm was the limit. I never thought that my vision was so shallow. There are actually divine beings in this world. They can split the heavens and earth apart and create humans as easily as flipping their hands." Swoosh! As soon as his voice fell, a golden light shot up from Dizang of Goguryeo's body. He put his palms together and chanted the name of Buddha. His appearance was solemn. A huge golden shadow slowly rose from behind him and became bigger and bigger. Tang Zheng looked at this scene in surprise. Then, he suddenly understood. Dizang of Goguryeo's cultivation had been hovering in the same place. When he heard Tang Zheng's words, he suddenly saw the light. The door to a new world slowly opened in front of his eyes. At this moment, he had a new understanding of the Ksitigarbha Sutra. He had an epiphany. Golden Sanskrit characters fell from the sky. A burst of Sanskrit sounds like rolling thunder sounded in their ears. The Sanskrit characters fell from the top of everyone's heads and disappeared without a trace. Suddenly, everyone's mood gradually calmed down. Their faces were like still water. An unprecedented tranquility surrounded them. Tang Zheng was not affected. Dizang of Goguryeo was also a saint realm cultivator. He was immune to Dizang of Goguryeo's influence. However, the others were different. Even the Emperor of Heaven was no exception. Tang Zheng looked around. This group of people had witnessed this scene. It was really a rare opportunity. For a long time after this, they would benefit endlessly. Their cultivation would be twice the result with half the effort. Congratulations, Dizang of Goguryeo. Tang Zheng congratulated. Dizang of Goguryeo smiled slightly. That solemn smile was deeply rooted in people's hearts. It was like a spring breeze. He chanted the name of Buddha high up in the sky. His voice seemed to be able to echo in the beam. Chapter 1831. Dizang of Goguryeo had ascended to the sacred realm. Everyone was immersed in it and couldn't extricate themselves for a long time. The saint realm was such an unreachable realm that one could only dream of. Even the celestial emperor was no exception. His eyes were filled with yearning and envy. Dizang of Goguryeo looked solemn, but he was the calmest. He bowed deeply to Tang Zheng and said, "Tang Zheng, thank you." Tang Zheng didn't seem to have done anything, but the information he revealed was like a stepping stone that knocked down the barrier in Dizang of Goguryeo's heart. It was as if a ray of sunlight had shone into his heart. Therefore, he had an epiphany. This was the mystery of the Ksitigarbha Sutra. Everything was about opportunity, and everything depended on epiphany. There was no doubt that when Dizang of Goguryeo created the Ksitigarbha Sutra, he certainly didn't expect this scene. He saw the suffering of the people in the world and didn't hesitate to create the Ksitigarbha Sutra with his great determination to go to hell. This scripture was a collection of great achievements. Perhaps even Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva might not be able to fully comprehend the mysteries contained within. This was a kind of Tao between heaven and earth. It had its own essence and profound meaning. The others finally came to their senses and congratulated him. The two sides had fought side by side many times, so they were not unfamiliar with each other. Dizang of Goguryeo responded to them one by one. When everyone's mood gradually calmed down, they saw the devastation on the ground and the huge cave left behind after the loss of the Tree of Life. Everyone's hearts seemed to be pressed by a mountain, making it difficult for them to breathe. Pairs of eyes converged on Tang Zheng's face. Dizang of Goguryeo asked on behalf of everyone, Tang Zheng, since Yuanying's avatar has gone to search for the Protoss, and the human world and the world of ghosts are in danger of being annihilated and collapsing at any time, what should we do? Tang Zheng was the one with the highest cultivation and the one who knew the inside story the best. Naturally, all of this needed to be decided by him. Tang Zheng's gaze was deep, revealing the light of wisdom. If it was before, he had a different idea, but after seeing Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's epiphany, he had a flash of inspiration and had a completely different idea. He said in a deep voice, whether it's the human world or the world of ghosts, there are hundreds of millions of people. We can't sit and wait. Even if these two worlds have become small worlds and are in danger of being annihilated at any time, we have to find a way to protect them. Everyone nodded and agreed. The key and difficulty was how to protect these two worlds. There were no signs of the annihilation of a small world, and it did not depend on one's will. The mystery behind it was something that no one could understand. Perhaps there was no mystery at all, and it was just a random phenomenon. Tang Zheng couldn't figure it out either, but he was not discouraged. He looked at the ninth heaven and said, the human world is invaded by the divine race. This is something we didn't know. But since we know, we can't ignore it. Previously, I might have been lucky and didn't want to have too much to do with the divine race. Because it represents too many unknowns. The unknown is fear. I can't avoid it, or my subconscious can't avoid it. In this aspect, I can't compare to Yuanying's doppelganger. Tang Zheng exposed his own shortcomings, causing those who heard him to be moved, and they all tried to console him. Tang Zheng waved his hand, indicating that it was okay. He continued, but Dizang of Goguryeo's epiphany opened my eyes and benefited me a lot. We are not always at the mercy of others. The divine race created us. They call themselves gods. To us, they are unreachable. In fact, that's not the case. Tang Zheng changed the topic and said, Dizang of Goguryeo can have an epiphany. Yuanying's doppelganger can be promoted to the divine race. Why can't we? We were born as humans. Although we were created by the divine race, the wisdom and potential of human beings are infinite. How can we belittle ourselves? We can also be promoted and incarnate as gods. Our own gods, not some unreachable god. This god is to protect the human world and the ghost world from external enemies and destruction. Once our own god appears, it may be able to solve the danger of the small world's annihilation. After all, when the divine race created the human world, they directly defined it as a big world. Can't a new god do this? Boom! These words were like a clap of thunder and a wave of anger that swept through everyone's hearts. It deeply shocked and stimulated everyone. Everyone's expression changed again and again. Their breathing quickened, and their eyes revealed a thought-provoking and complicated look. Everyone was thinking and debating. How feasible were these words? Although it was too incredible, when it came from Tang Zheng's mouth, everyone stared at his serious and confident face, and they could not help but believe it a little more in their hearts. Dizang of Goguryeo said thoughtfully, you have saved the human world and the ghost world many times. If there is anyone in the world who is qualified to be a god, and the person who is most likely to be promoted to god, it is naturally you. Everyone's eyes lit up and they stared at Tang Zheng with burning eyes. Their gazes were as if they had seen a treasure, and they nodded in agreement. Yes, Tang Zheng, you are our god. You have saved us countless times, saved this world countless times. If the god race created this world, then you are the one who saved this world. Therefore, you are a god. You are our god. As soon as these words came out, the crowd gathered and the shouts were earth-shattering. You are our god. Tang Zheng was startled and was at a loss. He just put forward a point, but he did not expect everyone to push him to the altar. Dizang of Goguryeo said in a deep voice, "You said that by collecting the power of faith, you can be promoted to God. That is what the heavenly axiom did, but he did not have the support of the people, so he naturally failed. But you are different. You are worshipped and loved by hundreds of millions of creatures. This power of faith comes from the bottom of your heart, and you do not use all kinds of conventional tricks and means. You should enjoy this power of faith and be promoted to God." Emperor of Heaven looked excited. He was witnessing history. Although he had no hope of being promoted to God, he still said excitedly, "We can build an altar, build a golden body, and gather your power of faith." Build an altar, build a golden body. The others echoed. Tang Zheng looked at everyone's sincere eyes and could not refute. Yuan Ying's clone relied on crooked ways to integrate the power of the heavenly realm and the tree of life to be promoted to God. Then he took another path and directly used the power of faith to be promoted to God. Perhaps, this was the real way to be promoted to God. After all, the heavenly axiom had chosen this path, and the heavenly axiom had been in contact with God before, so he understood God best. Tang Zheng was speechless for a long time. Just as he did not know how to answer, suddenly, a mysterious power floated up from everyone's body. It was like wisps of green smoke that floated between heaven and earth. Tang Zheng was not unfamiliar with this. His eyes widened as he exclaimed, "The power of faith." He had seen the power of faith of the heavenly axiom before, but it paled in comparison. This was the power of faith that came from the bottom of the heart, while the heavenly axiom obtained the power of faith through all kinds of tricks to win over people's hearts. There was a big difference between the two. The power of faith floated between heaven and earth. Suddenly, it surged wildly like a tornado and rushed toward Tang Zheng. Chapter 1832. When everyone saw this change, they were incomparably focused. Their eyes widened, not knowing what to do. They couldn't see the power of faith, but they knew that this change was definitely not simple. After the power of faith was injected, Tang Zheng's aura stabilized, but when they looked at him again, they found that he had become somewhat illusory. Moreover, when they looked at him, there was a kind of reverence that came from the bottom of their hearts. Dizang of Goguryeo's eyes lit up, seeing the clues, and said, "Are you moving towards the God race?" Tang Zheng took a deep breath and calmed his emotions. He also didn't expect that his suggestion would cause such a big change. To him, this was a great opportunity, not inferior to Dizang of Goguryeo's epiphany in the slightest. He met the gaze of Dizang of Goguryeo and everyone else, nodding and saying, "Yes." Waves of power of faith flew out from your bodies, and after it was finished, it was as if I was enlightened, merging into my body and mind, resulting in this change. My godhood is forming bit by bit. Godhood? Everyone was puzzled. It was the first time they heard this term. Tang Zheng explained, "This is also something that I comprehended after fusing with the power of faith just now. Godhood is the most important thing to a god race, just like a human's heart, related to the life and death of a god race, as well as the strength of a god race." So that's how it was. Everyone looked as if they had suddenly understood. Godhood is related to the life and death of a god race. You're saying that the god race can also die? Dizang of Goguryeo's fiery eyes directly pointed out the key point. The god race can also die. Everyone's spirits were shaken, and their eyes lit up. If this was true, then the god race was not scary. As long as they could die, then there was a way to make them die, and also a way to defeat the god race. Tang Zheng nodded his head. This was what he had comprehended after fusing with the power of faith. He said with certainty, "Yes, the god race is indeed powerful. The lifespan of the god race is almost immortal, but the god race can also be killed. The god race can also fall, just like mortals. It's just not that easy." These words were like a cardiac stimulant that was quickly, fiercely, and accurately injected into the hearts of everyone, stimulating the unyielding will and high fighting spirit in their hearts. Facing the crowd, Tang Jing decided to share what he had just comprehended. The Godhead is condensed bit by bit, and when the Godhead is fully condensed, it will be the day of the celestial race's ascension. The heavenly Tao must have also condensed a portion of the divine deity, but it did not truly succeed, so it gave up halfway. The power of faith helps me condense the Godhead, which is the key to helping me become a god. Everyone gradually understood. The Emperor of Heaven said impatiently, "Then what are we waiting for? Let's build the altar, mold the golden body, and quickly help you condense the divinity and become a god." That's right, that's the most important thing. What's next is our top priority. Now that everyone had reached a consensus, Tang Zheng had nothing to do with it. After experiencing this great battle, the human heart had become more and more fragile, and it was precisely the time when they needed to find spiritual comfort and faith. Thus, when the altars rose from the ground, and the golden bodies stood proudly, countless people came one after another, almost breaking the threshold of the altars. The altars rose like bamboo shoots after the rain in the world's isolation. Not only Huaxia, but all of humanity had built altars. Of course, the altars in the ruins of the Tree of Life were the most majestic and spectacular. The Tree of Life was no longer there, so the altars rose from the ground. Humans believed that the altars could protect the human world and replace the role of the Tree of Life. Not only that, under the command of Dizang of Goguryeo, altars also appeared in the ghost realm. Li Xiaotian, as the representative of the ghost realm, was the main force in building the altars in the ghost realm. She was an excellent manager and organizer. The altars in the ghost realm were even more spectacular and majestic than those in the human world. When Tang Zheng saw it, even he himself felt a kind of worship and reverence. Of course, the effect was outstanding. The world was safe for the time being. Tang Zheng didn't have to run around, and there was a steady stream of faith flying in from all directions at home all day long. After integrating more and more faith, his divinity became more and more stable. This was the most relaxing time for him since he embarked on the road of cultivation. He could accompany his family wholeheartedly. Especially after Fang Shishir became pregnant, this kind of companionship became particularly important. Looking at Fang Shishir's belly growing bigger day by day, the subtle feeling of being a father made him very excited. It was no less wonderful than the feeling of integrating the faith. Fang Shishir's belly was getting bigger and bigger, and the day of childbirth was approaching. This feeling was particularly strong, and there was also a kind of fear and anxiety. Even when facing a strong enemy, or when the world was ending, he didn't have this kind of feeling. However, the peaceful days eventually came to an end. Before he could wait for the child to be born, the news that the Emperor of Heaven had been seriously injured came like a heavy bomb, which made him shocked and angry. The Emperor of Heaven's job now was not only to cultivate, but also to run around between the various altars. Unknowingly, the Emperor of Heaven had been worshipped as the High Priest. He was the person with the greatest power and the highest status in the altars, except for Tang Zheng, the god. Tang Zheng knew about this. After all, the Emperor of Heaven's cultivation was high. If he showed a few miracles, it was enough to convince the world. The Emperor of Heaven ran around the altars and gained a lot. Although he couldn't have an epiphany like the Dizang of Goguryeo and advance to the sage realm, he had a deeper understanding of cultivation. As a result, his cultivation base had soared, and he was already half a step into the saint realm. He only needed one more step before he would be able to achieve great success. It could be said that an expert of this realm had been seriously injured. It was shocking news. This was the human world. Could there be a second person with sage realm cultivation? Impossible. The heavenly Tao had been eliminated, and Yuanying's doppelganger had gone to find the God clan. How could there be such an expert? There must be a demon when things are abnormal. Tang Zheng realized that the situation had changed, so when he heard the news, he hurried to the altar where the accident happened. This altar was on the ruins of the Tree of Life. Tang Zheng's speed was faster than any plane. With a thought, he disappeared. Not long after, he arrived at the site of the accident. A towering altar stood on top of the ruins. The original appearance of the ruins had been deliberately preserved so that humans could experience the thrilling and tragic battle of that time. There was a tall staircase on the altar that led to the top of the altar. At the top of the staircase was a golden statue of Tang Zheng. It was where people worshipped. As for the tall staircase, it was to test and sharpen people's hearts. When they climbed the long staircase, their reverence and worship for Tang Zheng had risen to the peak. Then, when they worshipped the golden statue, the power of faith gushed out like a torrential river. This was the result of the discussion between Li Shaotian and the Emperor of Heaven, but the effect was good. Chapter 1833. In a flash, Tang Zheng had already reached the top of the altar. It was a mess, clearly a sign of the aftermath of a great battle. The most important thing was that his tall golden body seemed to have been carved by knives and axes, leaving many deep and shallow gullies. It was unknown what kind of magical weapon had injured him. This place had already become empty, except for a person on the ground. Emperor of Heaven. He was lying on the ground, dying. His eyes were dim and his breath was weak. It was obvious that he had suffered heavy injuries. Emperor of Heaven also saw Tang Zheng. He raised his eyelids with difficulty and weakly shouted. Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's face was as calm as water. He put his finger on Emperor of Heaven's shoulder. Immediately, his body's condition appeared in his mind like a direct image. What a heavy injury! Tang Zheng did not expect that Emperor of Heaven would be injured so heavily. How strong was the enemy? His gaze subconsciously looked around, trying to find traces of the enemy. He's gone. The celestial Dharch sighed as he guessed his thoughts. Who injured you? Emperor of Heaven shook his head. I don't know either. Huh? Tang Zheng stared at him with a burning gaze. He understood and asked, You don't know either? Yes, a mysterious person who came and went without a trace suddenly appeared on the altar. Tang Zheng's heart thumped. There must be a demon behind this abnormal matter. This matter was thought-provoking and unusual. I'll heal you first. Tang Zheng did not ask any more questions. A majestic power surged into Emperor of Heaven's body like a torrential river. Immediately, his originally withered body quickly filled up. The damaged meridians and bones were repaired little by little. After a while, Emperor of Heaven's eyes were filled with vitality again. Tang Zheng stopped. Tang Zheng, I'm really useless. Emperor of Heaven said with annoyance. Tang Zheng waved his hand and asked, Tell me the whole story in detail. The Emperor of Heaven nodded and began to explain the sequence of events in detail. As the High Priest, one of the daily tasks of the Emperor of Heaven was to patrol the various altars. Coincidentally, he was patrolling the area today. He saw that there was a person on the altar whose whereabouts were very strange. He stepped forward to find out what was going on, but before he could say anything, the other party suddenly attacked. With the cultivation of the Emperor of Heaven, even if the enemy suddenly attacked, they would not be able to hurt him. However, there was an exception this time. The Emperor of Heaven fought back, but he was still heavily injured. He couldn't fight back at all. It was like a baby facing an adult. This feeling made the Emperor of Heaven feel a great sense of defeat. It turned out that he had cultivated his entire life, but in the end, he was so weak that he couldn't even withstand a single blow. After hearing this, Tang Zheng frowned and asked, Based on your senses, what is this person's cultivation? The Emperor of Heaven hesitated and said, In any case, it's higher than me. Could it be the Saint Realm? Saint Realm? Tang Zheng hesitated and finally shook his head. Maybe not. What? Not the Saint Realm? The Emperor of Heaven's mind exploded as a chilling thought appeared. He stammered, If he's not the Saint Realm, could it be the God Race? God Race. These two words were like a heavy bomb that exploded in the air. It stirred up people's hearts and made them sway, unable to calm down for a long time. Tang Zheng let out a long sigh. This was the situation he didn't want to see the most, but it still happened. A pressure as heavy as Mount Tai hit him in the face, making his mood particularly heavy. The Emperor of Heaven stared at him without blinking, wanting to get a definite answer from him. No matter what the other party's cultivation is, in short, big trouble is coming. Tang Zheng wasn't sure and could only say so. The Emperor of Heaven's temples throbbed fiercely. Although Tang Zheng said it clearly, it was most likely the same as his guess. The Emperor of Heaven nodded heavily and asked, "Then what do we do next?" Tang Zheng's eyes flashed. "Find him. No matter who he is, he hurt you. I must find him and settle this account." "Yes, I'll give the order. I remember that person's appearance. Now that your believers are all over the world, it's equivalent to an inescapable net. I don't believe he can hide," the Emperor of Heaven said with certainty. "After you find him, don't act rashly." "Understood." The Celestial Emperor hesitated for a moment before asking, "When did you cross that threshold?" "What threshold?" Of course, it was the God race. Tang Zheng had fused with the power of faith and advanced to the God race. Everyone had spent so much effort to build altars and golden bodies all over the world. Wasn't it all for Tang Zheng to advance to the God race? Tang Zheng understood and said, "This matter can't be done overnight. So, the road ahead is long and you still need to work hard." The Emperor of Heaven wasn't discouraged at all. Instead, he was full of fighting spirit and said, "At worst, we'll build more altars and golden bodies. I don't believe that you can't advance to the God race with the power of the world." The Emperor of Heaven's conviction became more and more firm. Tang Zheng didn't object. His gaze fell on the wounds on the golden body and said, "I'll go first." The Emperor of Heaven saw that his mind was fluctuating and advised, "Don't panic. Even if you really are a God race, it's not scary." Tang Zheng squeezed out a smile and said, "I won't panic. Don't worry." In the following days, Tang Zheng ran all over the world, searching for traces of the mysterious master. But the other party seemed to have disappeared from the world and there was no more news. A question lingered in Tang Zheng's mind, was the other party a God race? If he was a God race, why would he come to the human world? The God race had disappeared for so many years. Why would they suddenly visit? Was it because of Yuan Ying's doppelganger? There could only be one reason. It must be that Yuan Ying's doppelganger found the God race and then something happened. That was why the God race followed the clues and visited the human world. But Yuan Ying's doppelganger had already left. Tang Zheng couldn't confront him and figure out the reason. He could only sigh. "Yuan Ying's doppelganger, if you don't stop, don't harm the human world." This incident was like a small episode. It didn't disturb the human world. Instead, more and more altars sprang up like bamboo shoots after the rain. On the contrary, the world of spirits and souls ushered in a crisis. It was just that no one noticed. As the world of spirits and souls, Li Xiaotian could move freely between the human world and the world of spirits and souls. She cultivated the Ksitigarbha Sutra. Her comprehension was excellent, so she had several epiphanies and gained a lot. Now, she could be considered a real master. Since building the altars in the world of spirits and souls, she was so busy that her feet didn't touch the ground. There was only one thought in her mind, and that was to let Tang Zheng ascend to the God race as soon as possible. Because, that was the man she loved. She was supervising the construction of a new altar. Suddenly, she saw a new figure on the scene. This person was out of place with the surrounding environment. Because this was the world of spirits and souls, it was lifeless. But this person was full of vitality, as dazzling as the sun in the darkness. A living person actually appeared in the world of spirits and souls. How could Li Xiaotian not be surprised? After all, this person wasn't like her, a world of spirits and souls walker who could come and go freely in the world of spirits and souls. Who was this person? Chapter 1834. Li Xiaotian stopped a step away from the stranger and sized him up. She could confirm that he was a living person. She had been busy with the Ghost Festival and did not know that the Emperor of Heaven had been attacked. "Who are you?" The other party did not pay any attention to Li Xiaotian and she could not help but ask. Hearing her voice, the other party looked up and asked, "Are you in charge of this place?" "Yes. A mere mortal dares to build an altar and receive worship," the other party said with disdain. That kind of arrogance and disdain came from his bones. Li Xiaotian frowned, knowing that this person did not come with good intentions. Tang Zheng was her beloved man and this person dared to slander him. Her heart was filled with anger. That is because he made a corresponding contribution and saved the world. Naturally, he would receive worship. This comes from the bottom of everyone's heart. Li Xiaotian explained. Saying so much, aren't you still immortal? The other party said disdainfully. Li Xiaotian's two delicate eyebrows were completely twisted together. This person repeatedly mentioned mortals as if he was not a mortal but a high and mighty god. This made her even angrier and she angrily said, "Others are mortals, are you a god? You dare to boast so shamelessly." The person raised his head high and looked down at Li Xiaotian, saying resolutely, "I am a god." What? Li Xiaotian pricked up her ears, thinking that she had misheard. She tried to recall and confirmed that she had not heard wrong. Immediately, she was stunned. She looked at this person in disbelief and stammered, "You are a god?" The person did not say anything, but his arrogant appearance said everything. He had tacitly agreed. Hiss. Li Xiaotian sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at this person in shock. She was so scared that she took a step back. Li Xiaotian's courage was big, but she was still scared to the point of taking a step back. It could be seen how shocked she was. This person did not care about Li Xiaotian's reaction at all. He seemed to be lost in his memories and said, "Humans were created by us, but they actually dared to dream of ascending the altar. Hee, how bold. What is a god? They are high and mighty, and humans can only worship them, not replace them and join the camp of God." His gaze landed on the divine altar and he said, "This divine altar is treason and heresy, what is the need for it to exist?" Whoosh! He waved a hand through the air, and the divine altar collapsed with a resounding boom. A series of anguished howls rang out as countless netherworldly citizens were crushed under the rubble. Li Xiaotian shouted, "What are you doing?" She recklessly attacked the other party. Although she knew that the other party was a god and she was definitely no match for him, he was destroying the great cause of her beloved. No matter what, she couldn't sit back and do nothing. In the past, when she faced such a strong enemy, she would definitely run away at the first opportunity. She wouldn't try to hit a rock with an egg. Now, she was completely different. In addition, there were so many beings of the ghost world who worshipped Tang Zheng from the bottom of their hearts. She couldn't abandon them. If she really left, then she would not only destroy her own reputation. To be honest, she didn't care what others thought of her, nor did she care about her reputation. She only cared about one person. Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's reputation was more important than her life. She couldn't let the faith in the hearts of the netherworldly citizens collapse. The other party stretched out his hand and grabbed her gently. Li Xiaotian couldn't move. She flew up high like a kite and was suspended in the air. What kind of divine altar is this? It's more like an altar. You can just be a sacrifice. Li Xiaotian struggled with all her might, but it was to no avail. She slowly flew above the ruins of the divine altar. The beings of the ghost world looked at this scene and seemed to have forgotten their pain. They forgot to scream as they realized what was about to happen. Li Xiaotian's life was at stake. Li Xiaotian felt the blood in her body speed up as a vigorous energy flowed through her meridians. This was not her energy, but an external force. This external force would crush every single one of her blood vessels and meridians. She would explode. She looked up in despair at the dark sky as if she wanted to see through the barrier of space and see her beloved Tang Zheng again. "My love, farewell. We'll meet again in the next life. I'll be your love again." Her eyes gradually became firm. There was no fear. Instead, there was a strong confidence and a little madness. She stared straight at the other party and said, "You said that mortals can't become gods. Let me tell you, you're wrong. Facts will prove you wrong. Gods aren't always high and mighty. Mortals can become gods too. Because we're humans, everything is possible." This seemed to be her final declaration. It cleansed the hearts of the people and echoed in the hearts of the beings of the ghost world. It was like the sound of Sanskrit, enlightening even the deaf. At this moment, her image in everyone's mind changed drastically. She was incomparably tall and mighty. Even if she was controlled by others and her life was at stake, it couldn't change this. Little bits of golden light floated from her body. Lines of Sanskrit flew up from the top of her head. Bursts of Sanskrit fell from the sky and shrouded the ruins of the divine altar. Li Xiaotian cultivated the Ksitagarbha Sutra and improved very quickly. Of course, she couldn't compare to Tang Zheng and the Dizang of Goguryeo. But she was much more powerful than other beings of the ghost world. The Dizang of Goguryeo had already spread the Ksitagarbha Sutra throughout the ghost world. Every resident of the ghost world could cultivate and comprehend the Ksitagarbha Sutra. They were all affected. Their minds were undistracted as they chanted Sanskrit. It echoed the Sanskrit that fell from the sky. The world turned golden. There was no longer the cold and terrifying aura of the ghost world. There was only a solemn warmth. "Ha!" The person looked at Li Xiaotian in surprise and said, "Strange, you can still break through at this point. What kind of technique is this?" No one answered him. Li Xiaotian also felt the change in herself. She had an epiphany. This kind of opportunity could only be encountered and not sought. She had an epiphany at the moment of life and death. However, it didn't have much effect. The other party was a god. Her epiphany wasn't his match. She still enjoyed this kind of epiphany very much. This proved her strength, and also proved that the principle she firmly believed in was not wrong. Humans could become gods. Humans were not afraid of heaven, earth, and of course, gods. Even if you don't tell me, I will find a way to find out. To be honest, the fact that humans can create such a technique is really beyond my expectations. The technique that the God clan left for you is already considered an extreme technique. You can still break through and create new techniques. His tone changed and became incomparably cold. But what's the use of this? You're still a mere mortal. After the person expressed his surprise, he returned to normal. He didn't put Li Xiaotian in his eyes and slowly retracted his fingers. Great pain came from all over her body. Li Xiaotian knew that her time was up, but she still smiled and muttered to herself, "Ninth grade Mahayana. Ha, I didn't expect to reach this realm before I die. I can die in peace." Crack, crack, crack. Her bones cracked and her meridians ruptured. Blood was seeping out from her skin. In a short while, she became a bloody person. But there was still a smile at the corner of her mouth. Her eyes were bright like spring. Chapter 1835. Li Xiaotian was on the verge of death. As she was dying, she saw a figure in the dark horizon. Golden light bloomed, and this person was like a golden man. Heaven and earth were bathed in golden light, dispelling the darkness of the ghost realm. It made people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze, and their hearts were clear. A burst of Sanskrit fell from the sky. The sound was clear and pleasant, making people feel relaxed and happy. The God clan also noticed this. He slowly turned his head and looked over casually. There was a trace of surprise in his eyes. Not only humans, but even the ghost realm has such a big change. There's actually such a master. The God clan exclaimed, and there was a strange light in his eyes. Dizang of Goguryeo is the lord of the ghost realm. You are stirring up trouble in the ghost realm. How can the Dizang of Goguryeo allow you to do whatever you want? Li Xiaotian used the last of her strength to say. Dizang of Goguryeo. The God clan repeated it a few times, and there was a suspicious look in his eyes. He said, isn't the Lord of the Ghost Realm one of the 10 Yama Kings? How did it become the Dizang of Goguryeo? Obviously, the God clan knew the Ghost Realm very well, but that was all history. The God clan was still in the dark about the current situation of the Ghost Realm. Li Xiaotian sneered and did not comment, but the mocking look in her eyes was enough to explain everything. The God clan was looked down upon, and he was furious. He said, "So what if it's the Dizang of Goguryeo? Isn't he just like an ant? What can he do?" He did not put Kitagarbha Bodhisattva in his eyes at all. Naturally, he did not know about Kitagarbha Bodhisattva's experience. His declaration that he would not become a Buddha until hell was empty shook the deaf and enlightened the deaf, moving all who heard it. "You don't believe it? Then I will let you witness his death with your own eyes. At that time, you will know what a real God clan is." The God clan suddenly withdrew his supernatural power. Li Xiaotian softly fell to the ground. With his last breath, he listlessly watched the God clan rise into the sky. Dizang of Goguryeo descended from the sky and locked onto the Protoss. There was such a huge commotion in the Ghost Realm that even the altars were destroyed. As the Lord of the Ghost Realm, how could he not know? He rushed over without stopping, but he was still a step too late. When he saw Li Xiaotian covered in blood, his heartstrings trembled. There was no doubt about Li Xiaotian's position in Tang Zheng's heart. If anything happened to her, Dizang of Goguryeo, the Lord of the world of spirits and souls, would also be blamed. Moreover, Li Xiaotian was the world of spirits and souls traveler, and she was taught by Dizang of Goguryeo. Dizang of Goguryeo had always looked at her in a new light and had a lot of expectations. Naturally, he did not want to see anything happen to her. Who dares to break into the world of spirits and souls to stir up trouble? Dizang of Goguryeo questioned loudly. The God clan stopped in front of Dizang of Goguryeo, looked at him overbearingly, and asked, "You are Dizang of Goguryeo?" "Yes." Dizang of Goguryeo stared at the God clan with bright eyes, trying to find some clues from him. He did not see much useful information, but the mysterious aura of the God clan made his heartstrings tremble. Because, this aura was unprecedented, but it was very mysterious and powerful. Dizang of Goguryeo was experienced and knowledgeable, and now that he had the cultivation of the Saint Realm, he dared to underestimate the God clan. This was an instinctive feeling. Dizang of Goguryeo was very convinced. "Who are you?" Dizang of Goguryeo asked. The God clan smiled coldly, like a cold wind blowing from a world of ice and snow, to freeze people's bodies. "Who am I? I am the Lord of this world." The God clan opened his arms and said arrogantly. "The Lord of this world?" The Kitagarbha Bodhisattva frowned. Suddenly, an idea popped up in his mind, giving him a fright. Could he be? Dizang of Goguryeo did not dare to continue thinking. Li Xiaotian said weakly, "He is a God clan, our enemy." God clan. These two words were like a bolt from the blue, confirming Dizang of Goguryeo's conjecture. The corner of his mouth twitched fiercely, and his eyes widened as he looked at the God clan again. God clan. Dizang of Goguryeo knew about the God clan not long ago. He did not expect to see a God clan standing in front of him so soon. This was too much of a coincidence. If it were not for Tang Zheng's reminder, he would not have known about the existence of the God clan, let alone the strength of the God clan. He would not have had an epiphany and advanced to the Saint Realm by chance. The God clan did not mind revealing his identity. He looked at Dizang of Goguryeo arrogantly and said, "Now you know fear." Dizang of Goguryeo's eyes gradually became firm, and his whole body shone with golden light. He said, "Fear or not is just a psychological effect. It doesn't mean anything." Ha, twisting words and forcing logic. Then I'll see how strong you are as the Lord of the Ghost Realm. The God clan smiled contemptuously and flew lightly toward Dizang of Goguryeo. Whoosh! The golden light converged, and a golden lotus grew beneath Ksitagarbha Bodhisattva. Ksitagarbha Bodhisattva sat on top of it with his eyes closed. Golden light bloomed from his body, transforming into a golden light shield in front of him. Boom! An invisible force was like a surging tide, directly hitting the golden light. The golden light trembled, and cracks appeared. Crack! Suddenly, the golden light shattered, and the god clan rushed straight in, directly in front of Dizang of Goguryeo. Dizang of Goguryeo was still as immovable as a mountain, sitting upright on the lotus platform. His fingers moved quickly, and a golden light fell from the sky, with bursts of Sanskrit chants, and fell on the god clan's head. The god clan stopped and looked up at the sky. That golden light contained a terrifying power. The light of a firefly dares to compete with the brilliance of the sun and moon. The god clan flicked his sleeve, and a majestic energy soared into the sky to meet that golden light. With a loud bang, the golden light collapsed. However, the bursts of Sanskrit chants in the sky did not diminish, but became more and more intense. Only this sound was left in the world. At that moment, Dizang of Goguryeo suddenly opened his eyes, and both of his eyes turned golden. A golden kasaya was draped over his body, fluttering in the wind. Dizang of Goguryeo stood with one palm in front of him, chanting the Ksitagarbha Sutra, and finally softly spat out 3 words, Buddha's palm. These 4 words seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds, as heavy as Mount Tai. The god clan did not understand the profound meaning, but when these 4 words were spoken, the aura between heaven and earth had a subtle change. This did not escape the god clan's senses. His eyes narrowed into thin lines, and he looked around. The change in the aura made him not dare to underestimate it. This change was too magical. He never expected such a change in the ghost realm. Whoosh! Suddenly, a gust of wind blew down from the 9th heaven, like an angry dragon descending from the sky. The destructive momentum made heaven and earth become dead silent. All the living creatures crawled on the ground, unable to stand up at all. Li Xiaotian lay on the ground tightly, and an instinctive fear rose from the depths of his heart. Li Xiaotian, who was not afraid of anything, was actually scared. This showed how powerful this change was. Between heaven and earth, only 2 figures were still standing upright. Dizang of Goguryeo sat on the lotus throne. The god clan stood proudly, looking up at the sky. He finally found the source of all these changes, from the 9th heaven, the chaotic sky. A golden light appeared above the 9th heaven, and the golden light fell down at an extremely fast speed, gradually becoming bigger. The god clan's pupils shrank, and he finally saw clearly that it was a palm. The palm was very small at first, but as it got closer and closer, the palm quickly became bigger.